thank you for coming. Everyone sit down. So this meeting is it's gone out as a joint invite to all of the people who would normally be invited to both the Histon Road and Milton Road local liaison forums. Due to the fact that we're in a period of political sensitivity, we can't hold a usual LLF, so this is the reason I have to chair it tonight. But obviously, LLF members here, Jocelyn's here, most people know Jocelyn, and Lillian's here as previous vice chair of the Histon Road LLF. Caretaker. So we'll crack on with the agenda. So one thing to say is that there is a box at the back. There should have been a sign-in sheet as well, so people can sign in on the sign-in sheet just so we know who has come. And there's also a box that you need to tick so that we can contact you again if you haven't done so before. There's also a box at the back for people to put in questions or suggestions if you don't get a chance to say what you want to say in the meeting. And there should be some pen and paper at the back as well. So feel free to put suggestions in the box so that we can take them away afterwards. So in terms of the agenda, where are the lights off? You want all the lights off? Or one light on? So let's keep the back light on for now. When we get to some of the more detailed slides, we may want to turn them off. So we're going to start with looking at the construction phasing. And I've got my colleague Gohar Hayat from Skanska, who's going to lead this presentation. His presentation is going to be fairly short because we want this evening to be more about people asking questions, giving us suggestions, etc. We're then going to move on to looking at bus services, and I've got Ian McMillan from Stagecoach here. Some of you may have met Gary last time, but he wasn't able to make it, so Ian has come in his place. So he's got a couple of very quick slides, but essentially he is here to take questions and comments from members of the public and people who use buses and public transport in the city, so that Stagecoach can finalise their plans. Then we've got a short, following that, we're going to move away slightly from Histon Road, and we've got a short design update on Milton Road, which I'll give you a quick run through of kind of some of the work that we've been doing. But then we want to maybe concentrate on this solution for drainage that we are looking to go forward on. And following that, I'll just do a quick run through of the Milton Road programme. So I'm going to hand over to Gohar now. Here you go, Gohar.
Can I just ask before you start, will there be a handout with the information, or will we have to scribble like mad?
So we will take notes. We'll take notes of the questions that are asked and some of the answers.
Things like your updated programme and so forth, will that come out?
What we'll aim to do is put this presentation onto our website, just so it's all there, so you don't need to scribble it all down. So here you go.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me at the moment?
No.
No? Okay. Should be okay. Okay, so in terms of the actual works, the intention is to commence works in January, and there's a programme that carries on up to the end of April 2021. The works are carried out in a number of phases, and we're going to cover the phases in a few minutes. From the perspective of traffic management, there's a few different sections of traffic management. So to begin with, we're going to start what we call Phase A, which is at the junction of Histon Road and Huntingdon Road, and that's going to be carried out in off-peak hours between 9:30 and 3:30, using traffic management that's placed out on the actual road and then taken back for peak hours. And then later on, we've got different proposals for the works on Histon Road itself as well. All of the traffic management proposals are based on allowing for safe installation of the works and to actually shorten the overall duration of the programme as well. So it's safe installation of works for construction staff, safety installation of works for everyone, for the members of the public as well, so it's vehicles, cyclists, pedestrians as well considered. All of that in our auctioneering, and that's led us to the proposal that we put forward today. It's to enable effective mitigation measures to be put in place to allow continued access into the actual city as well. And it's the traffic management also there to ensure that public transport is provided and that there is adequate provision for pedestrians and cyclists on the road itself to encourage the increased use of these modes during the actual construction phase. So this is the actual works. So starting off on the far left is phase A, which is Histon Road junction with Huntingdon Road, and then you've got actual Histon Road itself, which carries on up to past Gilbert Road. So Gilbert Road junction is what's phase C. If you can't see all the lettering, the yellow bit in the middle is Gilbert Road, and then we carry on going off in the direction of King Hedges Road. So in terms of the actual phases, start phase A. Yeah. Page 1 of the
The PDF is not as clear as the PowerPoint presentation, but we kind of just, it's got some lines on it which give people the idea of areas we're talking about.
Yeah, so this will be available at the end as well for yourselves to look at. So, as I said, first area of works is actual Huntingdon Road starting in January. So the actual works on Huntingdon Road, you can see, start in January 2020, carry on up to mid-May of 2020 as well. The actual works are generally realignment of curves, and there's a new signalised. The signals on the existing junction are going to be upgraded to a new system, but it needs an awful lot of infrastructure installed to actually allow those signals to be installed. There's various curve alignments, and then various works to the islands that are existing in the area as well. Yeah. So what you can see here is how we're going to actually phase the work. So the number of phases, there's 7 phases that are actually shown. We'll be working on generally one of those phases at a time. In some cases there'll be 2, but it's just to give you an idea of how we're going to actually construct it. So as we're working on, for instance, the large blue area that you can see that's going along Huntingdon Road itself. So typically 9:30 the traffic management will go out and allow us to work during those off-peak hours, and then for 3:30 traffic management will return back in. So from a peak traffic movement perspective,
Is that weekend also, or just weekday?
weekdays only. Weekends we allow all of the guys to have a bit of rest.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Is it weekends or weekdays?
Weekdays only. Yep. So each of what's shown on the previous slides are shown in a lot more detail here. I think it'll be a lot easier in terms of the actual presentation that we'll have access to see exactly what we're going to do in each of those areas. But the general gist of it is what I just described, putting in the traffic management during the off-peak hours. And that allows us to carry out the work safely as well. And there'd be due consideration for all of the properties and access into the properties as well. So we'll be liaising with each of the property owners, especially when we're working on those particular properties as well.
About access to Victoria Road from the Histon and vice versa.
Yeah,
Will it be the same as
sure.
it is now?
Yeah, generally the movements are going to be the same. Just temporarily for one of the first phases, phase 1, which is on the top left, there's a turning that goes. That's the only one that we're going to stop for a short period of time. It's a matter of a few days. and then after that you'll be able to do the same movements as well. We're actually looking to, we're actually reviewing that particular phase to break it down into smaller phases, and we might be able to maintain the movements as well. That's being consulted at the moment with the local council. As a part of facilitating these works as well, the actual design of the traffic signals, we're going to work with the traffic signals designers with the existing signals to try and maximise the efficiencies so that it works favourably in terms of the peak times and the off-peak times as well. So yeah, again, this is just going into the detail of each of the phases, so we can carry on through that. But just to show yourselves that there's a number of different phases that are needed. At the end of it all, there is going to be a period where we're going to be resurfacing as well, which is late May as well, and that will require some closures. It'll be done overnight for the surfacing, and then yeah. So then we upon completion of the works there, we start on Histon Road and the main works. So the proposal that we outlined previously as well, and we've looked at it in a lot more detail since, is to have this a one-way system installed. So prior to that, when we're working in the other area, Histon Road is operating as it is at the moment, and then when we actually start work on Histon Road, we have a one-way system, one-way traffic management system. Go to the next slide. And the idea of that one-way system is the blue area represents the area of works on Histon Road. So once we're working there, we're going to be we're going to encourage members of the public to avoid Histon Road as much as possible. So from junction 33, there'll be signage to encourage people to use the route into Cambridge from junction 33 through Milton Road. And then equally on Huntingdon Road, we'll be encouraging people to stay on the Huntingdon Road as well into the actual city. Reason for that is, next slide, is that we're going to be signposting an official diversion route along the A14 coming off at junction 33. So we'll be installing a one-way system that allows northbound flow only towards junction 32. Yeah, so northbound flow through. Sorry,
It's King's Hedges Road and
Yeah.
Arbury Road will be the main.
Well, yeah, the main diversion route is the one that's shown around the outside. So the one that's signposted is actually going to be along the A14 and Milton Road. The one that you can see in the dashed green line and sort of the pink beginnings and ends are what we probably expect the locals and those that are residents. They won't be signposted to actually encourage anyone to go in that direction, but we imagine that there'll be an increase in people locally that will be using those sections of roads.
How would you get
What
from
will also happen is
William
that they are going to
Sorry, one at a time,
through
please.
Arbury and King's Hedges to get onto the Victoria Road.
Yeah.
And those roads through Arbury and King's Hedges are simply not wide enough to rat run. They're not going to bother about coming onto the Milton Road right up there, because if they want to get into Cambridge, they're going to have to turn right across the Milton Road. Whereas if they come into Victoria Road, it's a lot easier for them.
Yes, certainly we acknowledge the fact that people aren't going to be using necessarily the official diversion. I mean, from our perspective, we're going to be encouraging on, like I said on the previous one, to actually come off before they get to Histon Road, so whether it's at 31 or 33. When people do get to 32, it's going to be signposted to go back to 33. We're going to have to monitor once the actual work start, and once we put this one-way system in place from May, we are going to be monitoring if there is additional traffic on those roads, and then we'll have to review what extra measures that we can actually put in place. At the moment, we can't actually model that in terms of how people are going to be using those roads, because what's shown there, for instance, the dashed line, that's just a couple of examples. Obviously, as yourselves as locals we fully appreciate there's going to be other routes that can be taken as well. So we're going to have to monitor all of that. So,
I'm on the district council's proposal, and this seems to assume that we're coming off the A14 or already south of the A14, but you've got lots of villages north of the A14, and well, first of all, we haven't been consulted with at all on any of this over all the time that this is being planned, and I've sort of come to it late in the day, and still, how much modelling have you done for the people from the northern villages? It's not just Boston, there's villages further north who use this route into Cambridge, and it's also our bus route into Cambridge, and you know, there's very little being said to us about what's happening to all those people who use this as a direct route to get to work in Cambridge. And I think the other day you mentioned
I've got grandchildren in Willingham. How are they going to get here if they're sick before 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, what about the local people? I mean, so you've got a large area there, there's local people going to and from work. I'm sorry, I don't think very much of that.
This isn't directed.
It's not just,
Yeah, no, it's
you know, there are other areas than the A14.
This isn't directed at you because you're representing the contractor, aren't you?
Why was consideration not given to a park and ride site just off the 1049 and close to the A14 that would have taken the traffic off the 1049 so that it doesn't need to come down the Histon Road?
We suggested it long
Yeah.
ago and we were ignored.
It's been put forward several times.
It's certainly, I mean, as a part of the so we're going to be encouraging people to use the park and ride at Milton.
Can I ask, have you done any, I mean, you said you haven't done any modelling, but you know roughly how many vehicles come in from the north each day?
Yeah.
I mean, is it actually possible for these subsidiary roads to cope with those vehicles? I mean, is this actually realistic?
I live on Milton Road, and recently that road has been completely congested. It was congested this evening, so half the people are late. There was an accident on last Friday, I think it was, that caused actually mayhem. Then there was when Green End Road was closed, it caused 13-mile queues and blocked the whole of North Cambridge. How can you be sure that that isn't going to happen then? When we've got extra traffic coming, we've got Histon Road traffic coming down there as well. I can't see that it's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of the actual route and the actual proposal, is it as I touched on right at the very beginning, one of the considerations is the safety of actually constructing the scheme that needs to be constructed as well. Duration comes into it, so by actually installing this system and working to the proposal that we're looking to work to, which is a number of work series. At the same time, we're looking to shorten the duration of that, the construction pain. I mean, we do acknowledge the fact that there is going to be disruption during the actual works. In terms of your notes about additional traffic on Milton Road, there will be additional traffic coming inbound into the actual city. From our review so far, so when I said there's no modelling done, that's based on no modelling on people using alternative routes when we actually put the traffic management into place. So we've reviewed the actual proposal, and at the moment this proposal is considered the best of the proposals that we've looked at.
But
And
it's
that's been
been
worked through.
terribly polluted as well down Milton Road. I mean, it's terrible to walk down there. It's terrible to bike down there when it's blocked.
They would choose the most convenient and quickest route. And if that means King Hedges and Arbury down to Victoria Road, that's what they would choose.
It's not doing all this at one stage, so when you do phase one, people still can come down to Guildford over there, can't they?
They can, yeah.
So it's only when you get to phase 2 or 3 whatever it is.
Yeah, that's
when
right.
you get the real problems of rail safety.
Can I just point out that in May 2020, a lot of students from the northern villages who have no option but to go to Hills Road and Longwood for sixth form college will be taking their A-level exams.
Yeah, certainly. So if we carry on, so if it's okay, I'll carry on through the slides and then we'll take further questions at the end. It's going to be covered on here. So on this side of it, it's covered, the works are one way from May to the end of September once we're working on the east side of Histon Road, and then if we carry on,
So the red box.
What I was making, I tried to get from Huntington Road down to Hedges Road last week. And without this closure, King's Hedges Road was nose to tail all the way up to the Golden Hole. This is about 6 o'clock. So we had to double back and go through Harbour and then cut back one of the roads to get back to where we wanted to go. So if it's like that now, I consider it cannot work. It will not work. With all the A10 traffic coming in, traffic from the A14 coming from the east, traffic from the A14 coming from the west, it will not work.
What do you suggest instead?
Well, that's up to these people. I'll guarantee it won't work. I mean, people will go ballistic.
yeah.
They won't. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, certainly there's going to be a settling in period as well, once it is installed, as you say.
Let's just let go. I'll just finish the last few slides, and then because I want the questions and points to be fairly structured, so that whoever's noting them down can actually get them all down. So let's finish the presentation, and we've got plenty of time to then have questions, because that's what this evening is about.
Yeah, so this just gives a representation of the area that's going to be installed during the first half, once we're working on the actual east side of the actual road.
How wide is that
Let's
side?
have questions at the end. We'll cover that at the end.
Yeah. And then we move on. So during the period of October, so this is still during the one-way system from October up to March, as shown there. We'll work on the west footpath as well, and it'd be a similar in terms of how we're working on the actual east side. So you've got the one-way flow in the northbound direction, and the actual diversion as shown there. And then this visual just represents the second half of the actual installation that we're going to be doing from the midpoint, the crown of the actual road, to the western boundary as well. And then during the period of the actual works, we're going to be working on the Gilbert Road junction as well. So we've got a period of approximately 8 weeks on the east side, in the yellow section that's shown on there. And then once we've switched the traffic over to the west side, to time with the programme on the west side, there'll be a period of around about 10 weeks on the west side as well. So that'll be from December to February of 2021. Now, in terms of communications, we'll be providing a dedicated CLO to manage some of the customer liaison officers, to manage messages to the public and local stakeholders as well. CLO will act as a conduit between CCC, the GCP, ourselves as the delivery team, and the affected stakeholders as well. The intention is that the CLO will be communicating through a number of different means. So it'll be in the form of letters, face-to-face contact, electronic communication as well, tying in with the social media side of things as well.
I suggest that he also liaises closely with the Cambridge News, so that can also publish, because not everybody still uses electronic communication.
Yeah, very valid comment. So the CLO would be someone that would be, so we've got Anna Jers, and we'll be providing details in due course of our customer liaison officer as well. So as needed, we can start communication, and we can do it through our CLO as a conduit for those communications as well. And then also over and above that, so as we're carrying out the actual works, the intention is to provide a drop-in point as well. So that'll be a fixed time during the week, fixed day for a number of hours, and that'll be open. That'll be something that we'll gauge in terms of whether it needs to be once a week or twice a week or on different days of the week as well. And that's something that we will work closely with yourselves on. And the idea is that members of the public can actually pop in and then we can give an update of the actual project, how the programme's going, if there are concerns from the members of the public. So if some of the stuff that we've actually spoken about so far is realised, and those concerns are coming into us, it'll allow us to actually coordinate a response to those as well. And at that point, the actual drop-in centre will be managed by our customer liaison officer and also our project manager for the works as well, and site agent for the works. We'll also be facilitating meetings like what we're actually carrying out today. So out of those drop-in meetings will also be arranged for those that can't actually attend during the daytime as well. Okay, I'll pass on, and then in terms of any further questions, we'll answer them at the end.
Okay, thanks very much. So I just wanted to go over just a few clarifications there. So thanks, Dave, for just running through what Skanska are proposing and how you're proposing to construct the scheme. So in terms of what stage we're at the moment, Skanska have put in their applications for the permits required to work on the road, and they've also submitted application for the temporary traffic regulation order required to work around the junction. And we're still working with our streetworks team on how exactly we are going to conduct the works on the main part of Histon Road. So the area where we are proposing to have the inbound road closure, we're still in some discussions with our streetworks team on that particular area. The streetworks team are fairly supportive of the options that Skanska are putting forward. And personally, from my point of view, from the advice that I've taken from a variety of sources, including Skanska, the A14 team, Stagecoach, and other stakeholders, and also from feedback when we presented this at the Histon Road Local Liaison Forum some time ago, my feeling is that the proposal being put forward is the best way to do this, subject obviously to us monitoring how it goes. But on paper it is the best way. The programme time is much reduced compared to if we conducted all of the works under temporary traffic lights. So under temporary traffic lights, the main part of Histon Road would take almost 2 years to construct because we'd be very limited to working on short sections at the time. Using this method with a partial road closure, we can get it down under a year as a proposed programme. And my aim is that we try to keep to that programme, because obviously from a project management point of view, if we start going beyond those programmes, then my costs also start to go up due to the fact that we're on site longer and incurring costs. So it's in our interest to try and keep to that programme. And it's also in our interest to keep to that programme because, as a few people have already said, there is a disruption caused by this construction. But I think Histon Road is a very challenging road to construct, and however we do it, there will be disruption. So we've looked to try and minimise that disruption in terms of time, and also minimise in terms of how we're delivering it. And as I said, we've also worked with Stagecoach, and we've had a lot of discussions with Stagecoach in terms of how we provide public transport to try and mitigate, provide additional ways to get into the city, for example. I've talked to Skanska, and we're ensuring that you can cycle into the city still, so it's essential that while we're doing the works, we maintain access to cyclists both in and outbound on Histon Road, for example, also pedestrians, obviously. So all of those factors have been considered, but yeah, as I said, it is a challenge, and it will be disruptive. I think a key thing that we need to do is to make sure that the communications are good throughout the work. So we've got a little bit of time until May to try and, to work on those communications and make sure people are aware of what we are doing. And this is the start of it, and to talk with the local people. But I understand that obviously there are people from further afield who don't necessarily know what's going on. So we've got to try and reach those people. We've got to set out what we're doing, when we're doing it, how it's going to affect them, what other ways are there of accessing the city during the works, what are perhaps the other route options that people can take. So for example, if you live in Histon and Cottenham and drive to Cambridge, do you actually come down through Histon onto Milton Road, onto the A14 or King's Hedges and Milton Road, or do you take the other way around through Girton and in on Huntingdon Road? Maybe that would be a better option during the works. And as Gohar said, at the start of the works, I think from experience in saying this, but at the start of any works there is a short period where there will be more disruption as people do settle into a new pattern of going about their daily routine and getting to where they need to go. So there will be a short-term time, I anticipate, where the CLO will be working hard, and we'll be working hard with a lot of complaints and queries, but hopefully that should settle down as people get used to and adjust to the disruption that's put in place. So anyway, I think that's enough from us. What time is it? So it's 20 to 7 now. We've got at least half an hour, I guess, so to go through this. It would be good to take questions around the traffic management, because remember we've got Stagecoach here who will do a very, very brief presentation, and we'll talk about bus services after this. So let's keep this slightly away from bus services, because we'll cover that later.
Can I just ask one thing? The parking of phase number D, when was the timing for that? I missed that.
Sorry, so phase A, let me just quickly run through the phases. So phase A, so Huntingdon and Histon Road Junction, Victoria Road Junction, is January to May. In May, we look to start phase B, C and D, or so B and D, because as you saw phase C, phase C is kind of mixed in the middle. But phase B and D, which is the two main parts of Histon Road, we're looking to start in May at the moment.
If the A14 is
Dependent on the A14 reopening and dependent on Victoria Road junction area going to plan and being finished by then as well. Phase B will probably be finished in January 21 and then we'll reopen. Phase D will take a little bit longer and will be finished in April 21. So that's the phasing. So in terms of questions, I will share the questioning. Be okay to make notes of the questions and I get the answers. So how am I going to do this? I'll do it fairly randomly, so we'll start there.
Thank you very much. Actually, somebody just spoke about the question. How are you going to be affected by the A14 works, which you've started to say?
Okay, so we've been working along, we've talked with the A14 team now and we've discussed our traffic management proposals. We've got further meeting actually with Highways England that we're trying to set up next week. They are supportive, indicating that they are supportive of us implementing the closure after they've reopened junction 32 and 33 and the section between those two junctions, so that we can use that effectively as a diversion route. At the point that they open, those two junctions will have increased capacity compared to what they have now and also compared to what they had before the work started. So that helps us a little bit because we'll be able to get people on and off the A14 at least. Obviously we still have Milton Road will still be slightly congested compared to now, so we still have that slight problem. So the A14 team are supportive of our method as well. Just a point.
How well will this impact with Darwin Green?
Darwin Green. So talked to them several times recently. So it was hard to get in contact with them. I tried to encourage them that perhaps they could do their junction works while we had this inbound closure in place to get it all done and over with in one go. But unfortunately, I don't think they're in a position that they will be able to do that. They aren't far enough advanced in their design process to do that, so that will come after. Their design programme is over 10 years, I think, for phase A, so and obviously they will need to hit a certain trigger in terms of the numbers of houses built when they build the junction, so they're not particularly in a great rush at the moment to build that junction. But at the moment, my priority is to work with them to ensure that to try and push them on the design, to try and get their design to be consistent with the rest of the design of Histon Road, because a lot of work has gone into that to try and make it friendly for cyclists, and etc. And public transport. Right, I'm going to go randomly around the room. So does that answer the question? Sorry. So sorry.
Can I just ask a quick one?
Okay. I'm going to go with another one.
Is the pressure on King's Hedges Road?
Yes. To the back, because I know you've got to leave.
Yeah, I've got to leave. So, have you been in contact with City Fibre? Because from memory, their programme is about to reach that area at the same time as you're going to do
that programme.
City Fibre's programme, I think, is going to hit your area when you're working on it.
It's okay. We're meeting them regularly, and Skanska are actually will be giving them a quote to dig the holes that they require, so that City Fibre can then install the ducting.
Yeah.
How's it going to work?
Yeah. So just to add on that, so if they went independent of ourselves, there'd be a clash of programs. At the moment, we're looking to actually coordinate it. So as we showed those sort of 4 sections of works, once we're in each of those sections, we'll be carrying out the works for City Fibre at the same time. So there's not the added disruption of us going in there, City Fibre going in there as well. Over and above that, there's works with the GBN network as well, going to be coordinated. And, and a number of other utilities as well. So the idea is to actually coordinate all of the works at the same time. So from your perspective, it's one construction activity rather than someone coming, leaving, and then someone else coming a few months later. Great.
Personally, it really annoys me when that happens. So I've tried my hardest to liaise with the utility companies to make sure that we pick up the ones that have imminent works. City Fibre, obviously one of them. There's also Cadent Gas who need to complete the upgrade of the gas works on Histon Road. So they were going to dig up Histon Road anyway, so saved a bit of disruption there and mingled it with our disruption. Gentlemen there.
My experience of rush hour is it's much more concentrated in the morning than in the evening. People are much more spread out. So I was very surprised that your one-way journey is outbound, not inbound. And I think you're going to create much more gridlock by that direction, and causing people to flow around on their way in. When people are at work, they have more choice about when to go home. And if they're expecting gridlock, they can spread it out. Why did you choose outbound as being the one-way system?
Okay, so it's a good question, and there's a number of reasons why we chose that direction. Let me just think about my answer. So one of the reasons people have alluded to the disruption, the traffic disruption this has the potential to cause. So we think that as well as communicating all of the various routes, we think that trying to encourage people to use different modes to get into Cambridge during the works is really important.
That's not...
No, so
That's not practical.
no, this is practical. On Milton Road we have an inbound bus lane, so trying to get more people using public transport. The more people using public transport means less people driving into Cambridge. public transport can take a greater number of people per vehicle, so it's a good way of reducing overall traffic if you can get more people in public transport. Because we have the inbound bus lane on Milton Road, bus services that are diverted to Milton Road can still get into Cambridge. Okay. If we had chosen the other direction on Histon Road, so we had allowed inbound traffic and closed Histon Road's outbound traffic, all of the bus services would be diverted to Milton Road outbound, which would be suffering severe congestion, so all of the buses would get stuffed up on Milton Road, and public transport would therefore not be at all attractive mode switch for anyone. So the fact that we've got an inbound bus lane on Milton Road is partly the reason why we're choosing an inbound closure on Histon Road. Another reason is when you get up in the morning, you need to make a choice about how you're going to get to work. So if you have an easy route to work inbound in the morning and then it's difficult in the evening, it's a high likelihood you probably just jump in the car, go to work, and then you have to deal with it and cause congestion at the end of the day. If you close it inbound in the morning, more people, you're persuading more people to actually, David James sending his apologies. You're encouraging people to actually make a choice in the morning and potentially change mode, so encouraging people maybe to cycle in, use public transport, use a different route to get into Cambridge. So there's various reasons why we chose that inbound closure. And there's other options we also looked at. So for example, one option that's still going around is having a tidal flow, so you have an inbound in the morning, outbound in the evening. However, logistically that is almost impossible to achieve on a road such as Histon Road due to the fact that we've got so many accesses, driveway accesses and side roads into Histon Road, so you can imagine at midday turning that all round, you actually have to close Histon Road for an hour, or if there's a problem, more than an hour during the middle of the day to try and implement that turnaround. So logistically it sounds good, but it's actually really difficult to achieve.
Okay, so we're going to hear about buses in a moment, but if cycling is going to be an alternative mode, you need to make sure that there's safe cycling routes in from the necklace villages, which there certainly aren't at the moment.
Yeah, I also cycle in from the neighbouring villages, so it's my interest to...
the same route, so you know the problems just as much as I do. And it's not
an example of where problems can occur is in terms of what Highways England are doing at the moment at the A14 roundabout. And one thing they've been really poor at is actually providing a decent route for cyclists to get across that roundabout, and I know that. My aim is to try and do a lot better than that. Right, I'm going to go to somewhere else in the room. There.
Yeah, it's a quick one. With regards to the car pollution, is it possible to try and persuade motorists to turn off their engines when they're stuck in the traffic queues? Just for a few days or something.
Possibly, or we could perhaps use the VMS to do that. It's a good idea. Put it in the box at the back. Well, we've got a note of it now because you've said it, but yeah, that's potentially a good idea. We can only achieve that through signage and through communications. So when our communications go out, maybe. I'm going to go right to the back.
Yes, my thing is about cycling. I cycle from across the Histon roundabout a lot.
Yeah.
Also have a lot of classes with a lot of elderly people. During the Histon Road roundabout construction for the A14, I've had a lot of elderly people who have ended up halfway up that route, then being diverted via the A14, which has forced them to take routes and ended up in neighbouring villages that they can't cope with. And I'm really concerned that any work that you do is not going to be nice for cyclists and pedestrians, and it's going to make it really tricky for the elderly people that live in the local community, because you're sending them on a diversion up the A14. A lot of them have chosen to drive still, but not to drive on the A14. The current situation is that we don't find out which bits of road are being closed until Friday night for a Saturday morning closure. So even if you wanted to plan an alternative route, you weren't able to. Currently, the cycle lane inbound is the outbound is now shut, The one in the other direction was shut for the entire summer holidays, despite nothing much going on the path. So cyclists were forced to either go against the flow or they were forced to go on the road. It's now dark. The path you're forcing contraflow on up on that Histon Road roundabout is narrow. It's got cones on it. It's got bits sticking out.
I know, I got stuck there last night.
There's
the
no
other night,
lighting.
So I know the problem there.
So I'm really worried because I'm representing Mayfield Primary School, which then chucks people onto the colleges that have to do that route with young people under 16 on a bike, and it is lethal. So I'm worried that when we do Histon Road, we're not really thinking about what's going to happen to young people on bikes, elderly people trying to take safe routes around the city.
So the plan, when we do Histon Road, I think Gowan needs to answer this, but the plan is to provide fully segregated.
Yeah.
So the plan is to provide as segregated as possible routes for cyclists. So, for example, it depends exactly on the stage of the works. But what I want is that for there always to be a segregated cycleway. Sometimes it may have to be a shared use path for cyclists and pedestrians, where in areas where we really are struggling for width. But I want there to be a segregated route for cyclists that is not in the traffic lane, and that should be on Histon Road at all times during the works.
Is that just one way?
Both ways. As I said, in some cases, in one direction, you may have to share it with pedestrians. I think that's a compromise that we need to make at some point. Okay.
I understand that City 8 will go along the guided bus.
Let's talk about buses when I get staged.
I mean, I often pop into town, I do charity work in town, so I need a bus to go along this road into town.
Right, we'll talk about that afterwards. We'll come back to that and we'll definitely, you can raise that point after.
Sorry, so just answering your previous point about people being uncomfortable on the A14, that's completely valid. The official diversion route is the A14. People that are local perhaps might not use the A14, and we do understand that. So there are, it's not like you can't use an alternative route to get into the actual city. But the official diversion route, the one that we're going to be encouraging the majority of motorists to use, is actually the A14. So there will be alternative routes for those that are uncomfortable on a 70-mile-an-hour road.
Yeah. Is it possible to make the signages much more easy to follow though? Because part of the problem is signing. People are getting to a certain point on the road and they're getting completely lost. They're very difficult to follow, the diversions, and you don't know where you're going to end up when they divert you.
I think another advantage of the way that we're looking to do Histon Road is that it will be consistent over the duration of the works. So by having the inbound closure throughout, I mean, the only system is the first bit around the junction area, but I think you can see why what we're going to be moving around that junction. But for the main part of the works, we're looking also for consistency. So having that inbound closure from the start and keeping it there, that also enables Stagecoach to plan a longer term mitigation for their services, so they don't keep chopping and changing every few weeks, every few months to a different service. So it offers that consistency. We put the traffic management in place, and the signs will be there in place, and they won't necessarily be changing all the time. So I think that is another advantage of the way that is being proposed.
Can you explain in a bit more detail about the Gilbert Road junction, how you're going to handle that? Because going from Gilbert Road through to Watson Road, for instance, is an important cycle route for people going to and from West Cambridgeshire and that sort of area. Will you still be able to cycle straight across from Gilbert Road at that stage?
Yeah, for the majority of the time you will be able to. There is a reconstruction that we've got to do in the middle of Gilbert Road on the actual junction, so there'll be a short period when we have to reconstruct it, where there won't actually be won't be a road that you can actually travel through.
Right.
So there'll be a bit of disruption there, but generally, once we have the one-way flow, the actual existing lights are going to be changed to a three-way temporary light system as well. So we'll be looking to maintain existing flows with it being in one direction. So if you were going from Gilbert Road to Warwick Road, vice versa, or onto, as a cyclist, you'd be able to travel into the city as well along Histon Road as well. So you can actually do, from a cyclist perspective, you can do most of the same movements. Just from a vehicular perspective, you can go across the junction, or you're going to be going towards junction 32.
Okay. And Paul, can I ask about the diversion when you're coming in from Cambourne, where you would normally come down Histon Road? What will the diversion be there? Is that out Manningley Road? Do you have a diversion there, or how are you handling that?
That's a good point. So on the A48, so usually you would come all the way up to Histon Road. So one option would obviously be to send to Milton, but I think it's a valid point, and it's probably worth picking up as many of those people as possible and trying to bring them in on Manningley Road, as you just point, make sure you make that one. There's another sign. So do you next.
Yes, Gohan mentioned earlier for inbound traffic, which doesn't choose to take the A14, but chooses to sort of run either down King's Hedges or down Arbury or Arbury, Leo Road, and so on, that you'd be monitoring that situation. How would you monitor that situation? By means of cameras? How would that be done?
Yeah, we have traffic management on site, and then part of the remit will be actually to be reviewing it. So some of it will actually be visually doing counts as well. But over and above that, some of that monitoring. So we'll be doing our own proactive monitoring, but some of it is going to be actually feedback from yourselves as well. So we're going to have that customer liaison officer and that route that you can actually communicate to us. And if there is additional concerns, then there's going to be different measures. There's a number of measures that we're looking at. I don't want to go into those in particular detail here, but there's some measures that we're looking at to try and restrict, especially in the case of larger vehicles that are trying to take those routes as well. So we have to wait until it settles in. So once we've actually installed the one-way system and it's settled down, which we anticipate is going to take 2 or 3 days. It could be sort of 2 or 3 days in terms of people getting into that particular routine. It might well be at the end of it, it might encourage the whole road to be one-way permanently. Pretty well.
So a small thing that perhaps we'll be doing is, we can look at, or we will work with the schools and look at the travel planning. So, for example, our primary school people were told me that a lot of parents drop off their kids there in the morning, which causes congestion at the moment. If more people are trying to use that route to try and cut down through to Victoria Road, then we can try and work with the schools to try and encourage fewer parents to do that drop-off in car, and to maybe use other ways to get to school. Flip to the back, ladies have been waiting.
Thank you. Can I ask about how you're going to communicate? So there's a lot more detail here tonight than obviously we've had previously. Can I ask about how you're going to communicate it to residents, schools and the surrounding villages as well? As I recognise your point about trying to encourage a modal shift, but to do so people do need to be able to plan and plan to leave early, plan to take a different route to work, etc. And that takes time and preparation. So how are you going to share this with the number of people that are going to be affected, which is quite a large area?
Yeah, so so the very local people are easier to reach, obviously. For Histon Road, we will, and for the areas very close to Histon Road, we can obviously send out a letter, a personal letter to all addresses, because it's feasible to do so. When you start talking about the whole area affected, which is goes up to East Cambridgeshire, even Fenland, then it starts to become much more challenging. So obviously we can talk to local members, send out communications to parish councils, which we will try and do. What we'll try to encourage is that people look at, Scansfield will have obviously a website showing what's going on, and we are also trying to get lists of people so that we can send out maybe a monthly update. either a fortnightly or month. Council say that normally it's a monthly update that they would send out. So those kind of things. One thing that we're actively doing at the moment is building up a list of businesses, especially on business on Histon Road, so that we've got a direct contact into them so that we can give them specific updates. Schools is obviously slightly easier because we've got the email address to all the schools. So there is a plan in place. We've got a communications plan that we've got in place that we're kind of in the final edits, and we're working with Scanscore on that. Scanscore obviously setting up their community liaison officer and all of the stuff that goes with that. So this, as I said earlier, this is kind of the first phase of public communications, or not the first phase, but it's an early stage. But obviously there's a lot more to do, so there's more work for us to do in terms of trying to reach out to the wider community.
No, that's good. Sorry, just a quick comment. Is there, I don't know, could there be any way in which there could be a website or something where organisations, groups who meet regularly, etc., are going to be affected, people's groups could just register and give you an email address so you can contact them directly? Can we kind of come to you in any way? I think I can think of a lot of groups who I know will be affected, who I could tell you about, and I'm sure lots of people will want to sign up to receive updates. Is there going to be a website or something like that where people can register to receive them from you in the first instance?
Or you can subscribe
So you can subscribe to the Great Cambridge.
to Great Cambridge, you post it on that, and you subscribe and you get it in the mailbox.
So, in terms of that question, can we get back to you in more detail? You can talk to Sue about it. Sue's there. If you want a bit more detail at the meeting now, she can advise you slightly better than I can. But I think it's something we need to take away, and this is part of the information that we need to try to get out there. So, for example, the people who live further away, we've got to try and somehow get that message to them that they can come to a certain place to get updates and get information.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll go to you, Eileen.
So build on my earlier point about the sixth formers travelling from northern villages. Have you been in contact with the actual sixth form colleges? Because if they've got students taking exams in May, they may need to make their own mitigation measures to make sure their students get there on time. Because students who get late to A-level exams get penalised, and they may not actually be able to pass those exams or take those exams. So that could be life-changing for those.
Yeah, we've discussed this previously.
But I think you really need to speak to the sixth form colleges as well, so that they're aware.
Yeah, you're right, and I agree with your point. So we will be talking with schools locally, and I'm very well aware of, especially the students are going through to the sixth form and stagecoach also.
It's all other places. Because those are the sixth form colleges.
Yeah, but specifically people coming using kind of that 68 route are going to get affected when they by the Histon Road work. So I take the point on board. Obviously, we are looking at the programme, and it's not fixed in stone yet.
But I just need to be reassured that the sixth form colleges themselves know that this could be happening, and it could have an impact on their exams and on the students taking those exams. And they really need to be they need to be one of your stakeholders.
I agree. So on that, I agree. It's a very valid point, and it's something that I think we could bring into our consideration going forward as well. We'll start that consultation with them because there's a number of other stakeholders as well. At the moment, part of it is trying to build up that portfolio of stakeholders as well. So there's some that have registered interest directly, but others might not be aware of the scheme at the moment. We're trying to reach out both locally into the wider area. Yeah, but it's a very valid point, and I think from our perspective, we want to do everything possible to make sure that students, especially that scenario that you presented, we wouldn't want to be responsible for anything like that. So we'd look to put in place measures. Now, some of it might be installing the actual traffic management to begin with. During that, I believe in May there is a half half-term period, isn't there? So ideally we'd want to install it so that it's phased in during that half-term period as well, so that it settles down a little bit. But certainly we'd take that away.
Could we just go back to the junction of the Histon Road, Victoria Road and Huntington Road? Coming up Castle Hill to turn right to that junction, I thought I saw on your plan that you would have the two lanes we've got at the moment, which is the left-hand lane will go straight ahead to Huntington Road. The right-hand lane, of course, will turn into Victoria Road and Histon Road, and then to the right of the right-hand lane, there seems to be a cycle lane. Was it
it's in the middle. So it's like, it's similar to, if you come down Huntington Road now,
Yeah.
the inbound towards the city,
It's going
you have a
to
cycle lane in the centre,
Yeah.
so the cars are left straight on and the cycle lane is in the centre. So in the plan here, the cycle lane is in the centre, and that's to try and provide some space for cyclists who are turning right, because at the moment that's it's not a great place to be. So the trade-off with this design is that cyclists going straight on they can use that central lane, but in reality it's not quite so good for straight on cyclists, although they can stay in the traffic lane, or they can choose to go up the centre and cut back in, which at some phases of the lights is perfectly safe to do, but in other phases is say how you would like, but we feel this was a compromise solution that provides more space for cyclists and tackles the current movement that is quite dangerous and hard to make.
It's more space than it is right now, because I do that with my mobility scooter all the time, and the buses have really to stop behind me. That's good.
Sure.
Can I ask how, like I did before, ask how wide the cycle lanes are going to be down Histon Road? Are they going to be wide enough for two cyclists to cycle abreast?
In some areas, yes. In other areas where we're restricted by space, no. So
why do you want to encourage cyclists to cycle abreast? Because they'll just be chatting to each other.
So
that trick question.
The areas where it's wide enough, the cyclists will be kind of. It's a bit like Arby Road, where they're slightly off the road, raised on the Cambridge curve. Where the Cambridge curve separates the cycle path from the road. So it's actually not really to facilitate cyclists riding two abreast, although it may. It's more to do with faster cyclists being able to get past slower cyclists without having to go into the road. So this is why the cycle lane is slightly wider. Where we can have a wider cycle lane. And it's also, if you're riding a single on your own, it's also to provide more space between you and the vehicles, which provides a much nicer cycling environment.
Yeah, if you're cycling two abreast, you're not going to have that space.
But if you're cycling two abreast, that's your choice, and you choose to put, the person nearer the vehicles chooses to cycle nearer the vehicles, which is a legitimate choice to make. You could choose to ride in the carriageway if you wanted to, because you're allowed to do so.
Yes, Cotton resident, a Histon resident for many, many years previous, and a former councillor for this area. I don't disagree with the general principle of a one-way gyratory. It works basically, although this is big for a gyratory, it works basically in a lot of towns. But one of the worst problems that I can see and I can envisage from this scheme is that the local residents in between the two roads are going to be faced rapidly with no right or no left turns as soon as they go out to join the two main routes, whichever way they're going.
So can I just interject? So Milton Road will have two-way flow.
Milton Road will have two-way flow. And can I add to that, I'm assuming Gilbert Road and King's Hedges Road will have two-way flow.
Correct.
So there will be no right or left turn restrictions.
The only restriction will be on Histon Road itself.
Yeah, okay. The other thing I just wanted to mention was you mentioned earlier modelling. It should be not beyond the realms of possibility to model the main flows on this scheme, but the unknown, as you've already admitted, is the destinations and routes of people within the area, the local people. That is very, very difficult to predict, and taking up a point that was made earlier, you will need to have your monitoring in place very early, and it will need to be in place all the while as the whole of the scheme proceeds. Otherwise, how are you going to satisfy the concerns of the residents in Cambridge? I have a question on buses, but I'm going to save that for stagecoach.
You're right about the modelling and stuff. We've already got 2 cameras on Histon Road and 2 cameras on Milton Road, and this is, I had it open before I came here, because just had a few questions to go back to the technicians about. But this is actually, is it today? November the 21st. Okay. So this is November the 21st, and this is actually inbound. It says out, but that's in relation to the way the camera's pointing. So that shows you a split by all the different types of vehicles. So green is car, blue is cyclist, orange bus, yellow is light good vehicle, which is kind of vans and things like that. But we've been building this data set since mid-October, and these cameras will be up on both Histon Road and Milton Road for the duration of the works and actually after the works, so we can model to see what is actually before and after, to see if we do get more cyclists. For example.
And this is the one camera that is on the corner of Gilbert Junction. Yeah. Or is there another one?
No, this one is, there's one up near King's Hedges, and there's one, this is Cambridge Road, so it's up near King's Hedges Junction, and there's one further down near a Victoria Road junction. You can't, it's not online today.
The CCTV, but that's on Gilbert Road.
This is not CCTV, these are 2 specialist traffic monitoring cameras.
Those little grey ones?
They're kind of triangle shaped.
Yeah, okay.
And they can give you information on the types of vehicle, but we've also got ANPR, so we can measure journey times between the 2 cameras. So we've got 2 of these on Histon, 2 on Milton. So the ones on Histon throughout the works, obviously they're not going to give us that much information, except for outbound flows, but the ones on Milton Road are going to be quite critical in terms of showing us what impact this has on Milton Road, both in terms of types of vehicles using Milton Road and also journey times between the cameras. So we are monitoring that. As Gohar says, we'll also have to have some on the ground monitoring of the smaller roads, and my particular concern is the actual cut through, so Arby Road and then down Carlton Way, and then the cut through there. So that is a concern for me, and I'll be making sure that we kind of monitor that and see what the impact is, if required. But I'll have to work with the streetworks team to see if they feel that any solutions are required. But the County Council streetworks team are the network managers for Cambridgeshire, so anything that I do has to be in agreement with them. So they're the network managers. They make the decisions on our temporary traffic regulation orders and all of those, so road closures and all that kind of thing. So anything that I do, I can't promise anything, but anything I do, I have to get agreement from them, and they will make a decision based on their expertise and knowledge of Cambridge and understanding of what needs to be done. Sorry, I just...
Yeah,
sorry, wait a minute. So I'm going to take 3 more questions on this, and then I'm going to hand over to Stagecoach. So, Mike, I'll come to you second. Gentleman there.
When you're carrying out the work on Histon Road, will you be working on both sides of the road, or do you do one side and then come back?
One side and then come back. So it's one side. We work on one side and then once that's all finished, transfers to the other side. But the flow restriction remains the same, so it's always an outbound traffic only, so inbound is always restricted, regardless of which side of the road we are working on. Mike?
Yeah, just to make a point on the the local alternative that might be used as diversion routes, that depending on the phasing, then it's an issue that I've raised a number of times at local editorial meeting. That is the use of Roseford Road and then Perthway, and then also Metcalf Road and Portland Way in order to move through to Roseford Road that way. And whether that should also be monitored just to see what the impact is on that particular route. The version that will be taken into account.
Okay. And last question.
They put it in for a long time ago. Yeah, we're waiting for the good, it's about the air pollution.
Sorry, I'll come to this lady first, then go to you.
When both these works are completed, is that going to improve the traffic flow into Cambridge for every type of traffic?
So the aim of the Histon Road project was that we maintain the existing flows for most vehicles, that we improve flow and reliability for public transport buses, and an objective that has emerged throughout the whole design process is that we make big improvements for cyclists and pedestrians. So it will make this Histon Road scheme will, I hope, I sincerely hope, make a massive improvement for cyclists and encourage people to cycle in from the villages, which has a knock-on effect that it helps to reduce traffic. Improved public transport also helps to reduce traffic. So if all of that ties together and you've managed to maintain traffic flow ability on Histon Road, the reduced traffic is a bonus, if you know what I mean.
But that's rather a high scope, isn't it? That people may cycle.
But this ties, but this then also ties into a much wider programme, which the whole of the Greater Cambridge Partnership programme, which also looks at other measures to reduce traffic coming into Cambridge.
Like
So
park and ride sites.
there is
Don't
so park and ride sites are one of these things. Whether a site off Histon Road is a good site to have, I'm not entirely sure, because that hasn't really been properly looked at yet.
But shouldn't that
You're
have
being
been
very
looked
polite,
at?
Paul, but can we move on?
Yeah.
This lady, please.
Would you mind not interrupting me?
I think Lily has used your question.
So sorry. Anyway, I'll just finish off, Charles.
Thank you.
So park and rides are a consideration, and park and ride sites will be looked at on a wider basis. I think you need to look at park and ride sites in the round rather than just on an individual basis. So I can discuss later if you want. So Lillian.
Yes, my question is on the air pollution and the particles and the air quality on Histon Road, and as well the Milton Road, because we are sort of joined on that. We are damaged towards us. We had a promise from the ex-chair Blue Service of GCP that we should have this set up before, during, and after the construction work is done to monitor the air pollution affecting it. So first we asked that in September and wanted to have it as soon as possible. Easy, display data that we could reach, every person could reach. So I'm requesting that thing now because nothing has happened. GCP has a website and you can use that for easy, you can subscribe to it, but we need to have this information from GCP, not to go to county council, city council, or Joe Dix, or whatever is working in the department. We want to have the tables and graphs from you coordinated on a website, on your website.
Okay. So one thing
So that is it, that is the request, and monthly.
Okay, so I'll make sure that the link to the air pollution monitoring you can access it through our website.
But we
And
want to have it in specific graphs for Histon Road, not for the whole thing.
no, I can go into and get.
Do
I'll look
it
into it.
easy readable for any ordinary person, seniors like me, living in this area.
So I'll look into getting the Histon Road and Milton Road onto the respective websites. This information is also very interesting, and
It is.
so I'm not committing to put this on the website straight away because this is still in fairly early days. I've noticed that they're still doing some tweaks in terms of how they're setting it up, the cameras to do the counts. So there's still a little bit of calibration work to be done. But as soon as it's in a good, as soon as it's there, then this data can also be made accessible. I think it's quite actually really interesting to look at. Okay. Can we move on to?
Is that a promise?
It's an aim.
No, it's been for so long. You can start
Right.
now if you
Let's move on to bus services. So I'll just go back and I'll hand over. Thank you very much. Good evening.
I would like to apologise because my colleague should have been here tonight, but unfortunately cannot make it. He is slightly more advanced in what's going on with this tonight. Obviously, as you've seen from the maps and that, we have a problem. And that problem is twofold. We are talking about how do we get the local people into town along Histon Road, and how do we also get the people from further afield to get into Cambridge. At the moment, we do not have a solution. That don't sound good, does it? But there's a reason for that. We are in discussions quite frequently with people, and after feedback from yourselves tonight, the solution may change. We want to get your involvement, we want to understand what you need, we will do our best to achieve it. Will we achieve it? I don't know. But we certainly have an intent to achieve it. So obviously from what you could see regarding the maps, we can't go down Histon Road into town. So realistically we are going to be using Milton Road, and we're going to be coming back out through Histon Road. That, as you can appreciate, I don't need to tell you the issue we've got is how do we get people from, down Histon Road into town, and how do we get people to Histon Road? We have a variety of options on the table. We are considering some sort of shuttle bus that will just circulate around the Histon Road, Milton Road environment. The other options that we've got are various, because one of the problems we've got with any form of shuttle bus is how do we get it back to Histon Road? Do we take it all the way to Milton Road? Do we take it down some big, the roads in between? Like I say, I apologise that this sounds woolly, but we are looking for your feedback. We are looking to see the sort of thing that you think we need as well. One thing that we will do slightly, not slightly different, but they explained that they are trying to give us a focus so that Stagecoach can go one set route and that's it. We intend to monitor it. We intend to be very flexible with this, that if plan A didn't work, we will adjust to plan B. C, D, E, F, G. But seriously, we know from past experience that with the best will in the world, we can do the best thing that we believe, and on day one we realise we've got a problem. We are not averse to actually then going, we need a different plan. So at the moment, like I say, we cannot really tell you the exact solution that we've come up with because we simply, at the moment, haven't come up with an exact solution. So what I am looking for from yourselves is what do you need us to do? Where do you need us to go? Where do you want to get from and to? So like I say, that might not be what exactly was there. My colleague would have been able to explain some things a little more in depth than me, but the reason I'm here tonight is because my colleague couldn't make it, I can, and we want your feedback. What's that like? Oh, yeah, certainly. Well, the city will be aware of the possible impacts, depending on how people decide to, they've mentioned that we will go, everybody will use the A14 and Milton Road. We are aware that possibly they may not. So there will be impacts through Arbury and that. The busway, how much do you people... I came here to talk about Histon Road, but does everybody know that we are sort of trying to do improvements on the busway? So, yes, I don't really need to go over that again.
Which road? Will it stop on Histon Road?
No, because we can't come down Histon Road. So at the moment, coming out along Histon Road, yes, we can stop. But the point regarding the busway is we are in the process of trying to enhance the busway. Trying to improve frequency, size of vehicles. We've got a slight problem at the moment that we have a bridge just over there that we can't get under. As soon as we get that back, we will have this busway improvements. Don't want to dwell on it tonight, but we have actually got, I can't remember the name of the hotel, I did bring it up. We are doing a presentation on Thursday if anybody wants to wander into town, which will explain the busway side of it.
Amberlane.
There you go, you know more about it than I do. Yes, I believe we are in from 8:30 to 19:30. I think they'll have me there that long. So, but if anybody wants to pop up, I've got the leaflets here.
Which hotel is that?
Tamberley is down by the station, is it?
Sorry,
Which hotel?
the Tamberley, it's near the railway station, I believe, is that? Yep. I've only just learned that one.
That's Ian. I think Ian's being a bit harsh on himself and Stagecoach that they haven't got a solution yet, because they've certainly thought about a lot of different solutions. But part of the reason we're not coming out and saying an exact solution is because Ian wants to hear what people have to say before committing, and also before putting kind of pre-ideas in people's minds, because we want fresh ideas.
Yes.
So I think I'll chair the questions on this, so similar to last time. We've got the room till 8:30, we've got an hour still, so let's have about 20 minutes of questions on bus services. And you got your hand up first, you said.
It sounds as if you need a local and a distant solution.
We do. Yeah. It'd be ideal if it could be the same one, but I'm expecting not.
It seems unlikely. But from Cotton, it would be terrific if the bus just joined the guided busway in Histon and then rushed down to Milton Road, and then perhaps just for a change carried on through the city centre and served the railway station and Adam Brooks and Hills Road and Long Road, as it used to do. Now, if that works, perhaps it can become a permanent feature, not for every city aid, but at least one every so often, certain during peak hours. Now, there's no reason why that can't return in the same way, and you have the local solution to cope with the Histon Road closure. But
So you would be looking for a city aid that did the busway? Is that what you sort of
Absolutely.
and down to Adam Brooks?
Yes, that would be, it used to carry on to Duxford.
We would obviously have to check capacity issues, because as you're aware, we have a slight problem at Cambridgeshire railway station that there's a bit of a bridge there. That means we've got to put single deckers on anything that we
Well,
want
okay,
to
but the city aid can be single decker. You just run one or two more. What would be terrific is to start this before the project, so that people get used to using it before they're forced to using it, and then you get some idea of what demand is like and whether it's worth carrying on afterwards.
Yeah, but then how do we get there?
Would
To
you
the busway.
please remember that the City 8 also runs down Victoria Road,
Yeah.
and the Victoria Road residents need to use it.
That's what I said, there's a local solution as well as the distance.
So, when we're talking about Victoria Road, are we talking about people from Victoria Road into Cambridge?
Yeah.
Both directions.
Yeah, but from Cambridge to Victoria Road to Cambridge, as opposed to Victoria Road to Histon Road and out of Cambridge.
No, I use Victoria Road, Histon Road, and right through to Station Road, Histon,
Right, so you're talking about Victoria Road and coming out of the
as
town.
well as going into the
Right.
city centre.
Because we had definitely considered going into the city. So you're saying we should also consider Victoria Road to come out of the city?
Yes, because I don't think it would be fair for people in Victoria Road to be treated like the poor relations when it comes to the city aid routing.
There'd be a local solution, a solution.
Right, thank you. Okay, can you just give us a second?
For the local solution, people who can't catch a bus in Histon Road, the alternative would be to have small buses which could use, get local people into the centre down smaller roads.
Yes. Yes, but what that would be is coming up Histon Road to do some sort of loop that would possibly, rather than go Milton Road, come through and to basically just do that all day long. So it wouldn't be such a long journey to get on at Histon Road, go round the top, down through to the edges and whatever.
But you won't have to have local buses that serve either side of Histon Road, you have to keep it either side.
Either
To
side.
get into the centre.
When you say either side,
Either side.
right, just on one side.
One bus with one deals with one side of Histon Road, and another bus deals with the other side,
Right.
with small buses that get people in those areas into the centre.
Okay, yeah. Like I say, I understood this side, as in the Arbury, Gilbert Road, that side. But
What do you mean by the other side, sorry, I'm not clear.
yeah, this is what I'm trying to understand.
Well, the northwestern side, yeah.
So you would only
They,
go,
they probably won't need a bus, and maybe they can get in without using this, you know. I don't know, do people go to that side and get on a bus stop and
I mean that area, this that area.
yeah.
Because our statistics haven't proved that. That's what, I'm not saying it isn't, it just hasn't. Our ticketing statistics have suggested not, but
Maybe not, maybe not. But go into
There were questions over there before.
Yeah.
You, the lady,
Right. Number one is that the last meeting I attended, the talk of shuttle buses doing a half route from one end to King's Hedges and the other end into town via Victoria Road. Now that at the time seemed quite a good idea. The other practical thing to my mind is to divert the poor route number one down Gilbert Road and cut along part of Histon and then back up King's Hedges.
so how would we serve the other side, the one way that
We haven't looked, you're going to have to be using your shuttle buses, that's the only thing I can think of. Whereas King's Hedges Road at the moment is a nightmare. The roads leading to King's Hedges Road are a nightmare. I came down Hawkins Road last Friday evening, sorry, Wednesday evening, and the traffic backed up past Hawkins Road and halfway round the bend to get out of Hampton Road. And we have a major traffic problem down there at Bedford. And this is only going to increase it, so for us it's a living nightmare.
The biggest mistake you had was Park and Ride in Histon a long time ago, and had shuttle service to reduce the crowd on the road and have more shuttle services from the Park and Ride in this town to give.
Yeah, okay, so this point about Park and Ride keeps coming up, but
That's the way it should be, you know.
yeah, but this is completely out of anyone's control in this whole group, including me and Stagecoach. There isn't a Park and Ride, so we have to. Yeah, but it's not relevant to this conversation.
Sorry, discussing with me a long time ago, 2 years ago, there should be a Park and Ride from Histon and Chatham to avoid cars. They should bring parks and Park and Ride.
I'm sure there's someone living in Histon who didn't want the Park and Ride outside their house, so there's opposing views to Park and Ride, so it's a really difficult conversation. We'll go to Mike.
Yes, 2 points really. you've obviously got quite a lot of experience of running the minibuses around Mill Road when the Mill Road Bridge was closed.
Yeah.
And I definitely got the impression when every time I saw them that they were empty. So I wish you well. We try and put on shuttle buses.
So Mike,
Won't be empty along the
Sorry, can I just finish
Yeah,
the
sorry.
point? So it would be vital that they are actually attractive for people to use rather than just tokenism by yourselves. And the other point really is it's worth looking at either the 5 or the 6 servicing Victoria Road, perhaps,
We have considered.
instead of going down Castle Hill.
Yeah, we have
to
considered.
actually,
That's why we're asking.
I take on the point around people from Victoria Road trying to get to Histon, and I'll be interested in your statistics in terms of how many people actually do that. But certainly I don't want to see Victoria Road cast adrift, as it were, in terms of public transport. Because from what I understand, when I've spoken to Stagecoach, when you stop running buses on particular routes, it takes you a long time to get back up to capacity. So what we don't want, of course, is the situation with work on Histon Road and Milton Road, meaning less people in the long term are using buses. We've somehow got to make sure that whatever we do,
Certainly Victoria Road
we
is
aren't losing people off buses, and somehow we provide a service which means as soon as the roads are finished, then people actually increase using buses rather than you trying to catch up from a low start point, if you like.
So Mike, just in relation to the shuttle bus, so that service would be funded directly from the project budget. So there is an interest that it is used or it's monitored. If there is no usage, then there would be no point carrying on with it. Obviously the aim is that it is used.
Well, I understand that, but Glovia Thameslink funded the Mill Road one, as I understand it, yeah, because they needed to do it to be seen to be doing it.
Maybe there is a huge budget.
As I said, the buses were practically empty every time I saw them on Mill Road, so we do need to make sure we're providing services.
We'll definitely monitor the usage and make sure. I mean, if there's like one person on the bus a day, then there's no point running it. So we will monitor that and make sure that. And the aim of tonight is that we actually design a service mitigation that actually works. So getting ideas and help to make it work. Mike.
Yeah, again, depending on the phasing of Histon Road, an alternative which I did suggest before, I think another reservation for is if you're going to have shuttle buses sort of kind of servicing that middle part of Histon Road, then you can certainly, rather than divert the city one, you can have a little shuttle bus service up and down Gilbert Road, a temporary stop not too close to Mayfield Primary School, but a temporary stop in Warwick Road, and shuttling back and forth down Gilbert Road to link up with the city one stop.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Inbound, you have an inbound option there for people in that part of the area.
Great, thanks, Mike.
I wonder if there's the opportunity to have price incentivising use in this phase, but I'm talking about fares, so that would then get people more encouraged to use the buses locally, particularly when it's going to be disrupted anyway, and that would hopefully set a pattern for future use once the services are back in line.
I agree. We're talking about that, but it's good to hear it from you as well. There was a question. Okay, I'll come to you, but there was a question at the back as well next. So, Eileen, go Eileen.
I was going to say there are 2 things that stop people from Cottenham using the City 8 to go to work in the morning. Is the time it takes as it meanders around Histon and Milton, and the second thing is the cost. Or even to just use it as a family. 4 people getting on that bus have to pay nearly £28. They might as well drive their car and park at the Grand Arcade for the day. So
We are aware. I don't want to go too in depth, but we've had a bit of a change over the last 9 months in senior management around here. So we are looking at stuff and realising, and we have noticed that there is a big gap the minute you go from city to rural.
Okay, so my little tour around this area was then going Victoria, outbound Histon, King's Hedges, down Milton, around Mitchell's Corner, and up Victoria Road again. That could be a circular one way.
So repeat that. Just repeat.
So you go Victoria, up Histon Road, over to King's Hedges, down Milton, circle Mitchell's Corner, come back into Victoria Road and go. That is one way going. I don't know if it serves, do you have it? I have it two ways, or some will be a little longer going this all the time, and some will have shorter.
It's a valid possibility. Obviously, with that, you need to interchange to get into the city.
Yeah, you have many places where you can change into other transport.
Yeah, we've considered interchange, but we've also considered not to do an interchange because basically asking people on such a short time to get off one bus and get on another bus tends to be detrimental.
Well, we still have to do it anyway on the CP8 down in the city.
I think it's a valid question though. Is interchanging off a shuttle bus a good option?
Preference would be to actually get the shuttle bus to take you to town. Sorry, city. But it might be. Yeah, I think that the reality of time would mean that it would probably have to do something. And when I say reality of time, I mean if we've got this shuttle bus going round and round, if it's only going to go round and round once every 3 hours, it's no good to anybody. So it wouldn't take 3 hours, but you get the principle that we need to make it frequent and regular. I've seen, yeah, come back to you.
Maureen.
You said earlier that you were segregated cycleways. All this talk about buses and adding extra buses down Milton Road. The bus lane down there is actually shared with cyclists, which is actually why most of the buses go on the road, they don't go in the bus lane. So how's that going to affect cycling and the buses?
From your perspective, from cyclist perspective, from bus perspective?
So that's a good question, and we are faced with that issue on Milton Road at the moment. And obviously, the future scheme looks to
yes, I realise the
deal with
future
that.
scheme is great.
So currently, if there is additional traffic on Milton Road, that is when the buses use the bus lane, and when the bus lane is important. Obviously, they will run into the problem that cyclists can also use the bus lane, so it's a thing that we'll have to deal with, but the bus will still be able to move on the bus lane. For cyclists, they actually have the option. The westbound side of Milton Road is actually a two-way cycleway for most of the way.
Not, yes,
Not,
but that's
not
not
adequate,
where the bus
but
lane
it is.
Yeah, that's the other side of where the bus lane.
It is. I appreciate that, and it's a valid point, but it's a difficult one to solve. One option is that you don't necessarily divert all buses down Milton Road, and we discussed that, but someone else can say it.
Just very quickly, apologies, I've got to go with Susan, so thank you for inviting me to say something, Paul. I just wanted to echo what the gentleman down here was saying about the restoring of the traditional number 8 route. That would make people so happy along Histon Road. But if nothing else comes out of this, to have a direct route straight through to Addenbrooks, like we used to have, people love that route, and people would be so happy if we could have it back instead of having to change our route at John Street, especially people going for hospital checkups. Would be so happy not to have to wait around in John Street. I know it's covered over, but it's drafty and so on. So, and when I was delighted when the gentleman over there mentioned the possibility, I was also delighted when you didn't seem to jump out of your skin at the suggestion that the number 8 in its traditional form could return to Cambridge. I think it would be very popular.
May I ask a question? Not directly related to this, but one of the issues we are considering is what happens when one side of town has roadworks, and then because we have cross-city routes, it means both sides of town. So, for example, the one is suffering now because there's problems at Queen Edith Roundabout, which is Addenbrooke side of town. So, if we start to put more through, would you be understanding in the fact that your bus is delayed because of something that is miles away?
Yes, of course, because
Yeah.
if you had to do an interchange in the middle of the city, you'd have the same problem.
Yeah,
But at least you'd be sitting on the same bus in a queue.
but the difference is, if you was on an 811 to go to the city, would you be understanding that your bus could be delayed, I'm only saying could, because of something that's going on somewhere else, that didn't affect your little journey? Because it's one thing we're considering is should we move things across the town, should we not? There's a lot of big picture in here that we're considering stuff.
Well, did you build an underground system?
Go around the outside.
I can't build an underground system.
Chair, could I just have a quick footnote, which is, personally I would say yes, I would be understanding, but just on the Adam Brooks bus, number 8, another thing that I just want to put out here for people to think about is, to my mind, it doesn't have to be that it's the Station Road and the Adam Brooks as it always used to be conjoined. If it works better for you guys, actually to have one straight through bus to the railway station and another separate one on a separate route, possibly going down the Trumpington Road side of town, that would do the Adam Brooks bit, I'd be cool with that as well. I've got great fondness for the days when there was the one line that would take both station and hospital in, but if that is impossible for various reasons, it's not the end of the world, but at least give us one bus straight through from Histon Road to hospital and another one straight through all the way to the Station Road. Sorry, thank you.
Right, Justin first.
Just 2 quick points on that one about the number 8. The Admiral's End is really vital, and I agree the station is too, because when people are working in London and coming home late at night when it's cold, it really is terrible to get off at the station and have to get on one bus and then try to hook up with the number 8 in the city. It's really inconvenient. But I really want to say something about the shuttle bus that was used in Mill Road, and it would be really terrible if that was used as an example not to take this approach in Histon Road. It would be better to look at what happened there and to take on board that what happened there is the very reason why few people used it, because I did never use it, but my understanding from people who live in the area is that the route was too short.
Yeah.
You see, it ended up and people had to get off. They weren't going to make that change. It had to come into the city, and otherwise it was pointless. And so that has to, as you have said, that has to be taken into account.
Yeah, totally understand what you're saying.
Right, I think I've got 2 more questions, so gentlemen there first.
Yes,
Three
I'd
more.
like to raise a safety issue and ask if this could be incorporated in the scheme that we're talking about. And that is, it's called mini zebra crossings. Now, what it is, it's been trialled in London and it's a success.
Sorry, can we talk about this
Well,
afterwards?
we can do, yes.
Because it's not really relevant to the kind of bus. We'll talk about it after Ian's sat down. Gentleman here.
Yes, the question of interchange and frequency and reliability and journey time of the City 8 is it really is a big issue as far as Cotton and Histon residents are concerned. The City 8 takes an age to get into town to start with by going all the way around Histon and reversing its route. The alternative that we used to have has been discussed where the route used to go through to Salisbury. Yes, would support that, but understand the problems the stagecoach having maintaining times through the city. The alternative, as far as Cotton residents are concerned with regard to hospital visits, is to interchange at Histon to the busway and then take a chance on the single deckers not being full and not passing them going towards Cambridge, because the single deckers, as you already remarked, are the only ones that can go under Hills Road underpass. So have you considered anything around an interchange, a bus interchange at Histon, whereby maybe all passengers could be benefited, Histon Road passengers and through passengers through to the
Haven't considered it, but will consider it.
We have Gary and
Have Gary on.
we
Right, I
actually
apologise, I'm
discussed.
slightly out of the loop.
So there is, I think can explain it in a minute, but I'll go to the lady just there with the
There's a lot of disabled people who catch the bus where I do. I have to cross the road from Hazelwood and further down, and a lot of them catch the bus there just to go to Aldi and the hairdressers. Will there be a bus through or a shuttle bus through?
So this is
From that
where
stop
this
into town
is
or-
where potentially the shuttle bus has to serve those people living in that direction. Obviously they have to go up and then round somehow. So this is why it's important to get the shuttle bus route correct, so that if you want to make that route from Hazelwood down to Aldi, you're not sitting on it for an hour to get there. So potentially the route that Lillian put forward, the shorter route is obviously a shorter route from that destination round to Aldi. Obviously it's a trade-off. I mean, which route is best for the majority of people, and all of these questions have to be answered. But for that specific cohort of people, obviously a shorter route round is a better option. Or you could perhaps
Not into town then.
well, you could perhaps come down. You could perhaps come round, come down Gilbert Road, turn around if there's a possibility to turn around. I'm not sure if there is or not. And then go back into town. So you kind of do a stop at the end of Gilbert Road and then back on into town. I don't know. That's one option that I've thought about. One more question there.
Well, it's an observation actually. As a person who used the shuttle routes on Mill Road, I also noticed that they were not very suitable for disabled people.
Okay.
I know the vehicle you mean.
So can I just make one observation on the Hills Road single decker bridge is not relevant because the bus could come out, go down Hills Road, straight down to Admiral Saturday.
It could.
And
I understand what you're saying.
Potentially, but not if we're looking to interchange onto a busway, an existing busway service.
you can go the busway from Histon down as far as Milton Road, then on down.
Okay. Point.
Obviously, the busway part of it, because it's dedicated to buses only, is a more reliable route to Acton. I take on board the point.
Okay, the final point from. Do you want to go? Do you want to discuss?
Yes, on Friday we had a meeting with Gary, a couple of councillors from Cottenham, Histon and Orchard Park. No, Andrew. And we did discuss that the possibility of a circular route going from Histon up through Cottenham, round and back through Burton and Oakington, which would be.
So extension of the City 6, I think. So actually the City 6, if you do journey time on Google, you'll know the route through Girton and up through Cotton is actually probably quicker than through the circular route through Histon and up to Cottenham. So it's one possible idea is to extend the 6. That way you get an interchange on the busway at Oakington. You can then extend it further, so it comes from Cottenham down to Histon. So you then, and you take it down to the little triangle green in Histon and then turn it round and go all the way back. That route gives you 2 interchanges on the busway. So people in the north of Histon and the south of Histon can actually get on a bus, get to the busway, interchange onto a busway service, or they can stay on the bus and get to town. So there's an option we've looked at.
Right, like I say, we are looking at multiple options. I wasn't aware of that one, so I'm not aware.
Critical to that option though is that they can get on a busway bus, because at the moment the busway buses are full sometimes when they come through Histon. So we discussed
The
that.
busway is a totally separate issue, but I can assure you, the minute that bridge opens under the A14, we have a plan. And that plan involves bigger buses, more seating capacity, more frequent.
And that plan will be in place before this works.
Should be.
Don't frighten me by saying I can't go under the busway and I've got a problem with Histon Road as well. Please don't frighten me.
Last question, point.
Quick one, on that issue, there's a hole under the busway near Histon. Is it Does that stop you taking buses over there when the bridge is open?
Just give me, I'm not quite sure what we're talking about when you say a hole.
They dug out, because the busway was collapsing.
Oh, you mean between Histon and
Oh,
Milton?
Yes,
yeah.
and nothing's happening on it.
Is it not?
Absolutely nothing. So I'm slightly concerned that if that isn't done and they open the bridge, you're still.
No, so that repair work is programmed, and they are, okay, maybe there's nothing physically on the ground being done, but believe me, they are working on getting it done and doing what is required to get it done.
We are aware that once the bridge over the A14 is wide, on the A14 is widened over the busway, that there needs to be some reparatory work as well to the busway.
I think the problem is caused by the piles going in, they push the ground
No,
outside.
that's not the issue. It's down the
It's a separate one you're talking about, yeah.
Okay.
Almost at this.
All
We
right.
was assured,
It's where the beams are being jacked.
That's it. He's got it.
yeah, now I know what you're talking about.
Nothing's happened. Anyway,
And this is between the bridge and Histon, is that? Or is
very
it?
close to Histon.
Okay.
Close to Histon Station.
Right, thank you very much for all of the questions and all of the points and inputs. I think Ian will go away and feedback with Gary Nicholson, who I'm working quite closely with during this time. Gary's also pretty amiable, so through me, probably get his contact, and he will probably agree to speak to you at some point when he's sitting on a train going across the country. So if anyone wants to put in further points, just feed them through to me or feed them into the box or to the Greater Cambridge Partnership email. And we'll make sure that those comments and points get to Stagecoach so that they can consider.
Yeah, please do.
And in terms of feeding back, obviously we've got until May for the road close. Obviously I want to get a much better idea of what solution will be in place before then. But we've got a bit of time to get the right solution in place. So communication wants to go out when it's ready. And
Yes. I mean, from our side, we are totally aware that we need to communicate whatever we do. Not wishing you to bore you with details, but we have a registration process to run through as well with the government when we do anything. But we want to feed it to you, anybody. You know, we want to get it on our website, out to the people as quick as we can, saying this is what we're going to do.
Jump on a train.
right, let's move on to. Look, we've got a half an hour left, so we can just cover Milton Road. So anyone who wants to leave now, feel free.
Before our scan person goes, we should say thank you very much for the presentation. It was really very good and very useful. So thank you
So I'm going to get cracking on while people are still leaving. Milton Road. So what have we been doing? Art has been working frantically, I can tell you. So obviously the preliminary design was agreed by the executive board. We've moved into the detailed design phase, and there's not much that visibly happens during that phase. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of work and a massive amount of work by the technicians. So there is a little bit of visibility. So we've done various surveys on Milton Road. We've taken core samples of the carriageway. So we understand now where there's concrete under the carriageway in some areas. We've done, actually I don't think we've done the trial holes yet, but we'll be doing some trial holes to check the foundations of the road, how deep we need to go, for example, and if there's any contamination. We have also redone parts of the topographical survey, which is important for getting the 3D model in place. And what other surveys have we done?
We've done a speed survey.
Oh, we've done done speed surveys, so we're required to take speed surveys approaching the various crossings that we're proposing to understand what detection devices are required at those crossings. So we've done a number of things actually on the ground, and in terms of the design, we're well underway with the signals design, the street light design, and also the 3D model design. So this is just a little picture of the 3D model. You can't really see much, but it looks pretty. The problem, what we have found, so where we are at the moment, and why I'm coming to the LLF, is that we haven't really deviated from the design, which we said we would come to the LLF if we deviated from the design. We haven't deviated, but we've reached a point, due to the fact that we've got to this point with 3D modelling, we've reached a point where a design direction needs to be taken. Okay, and that is around drainage and how we deal with the water on Milton Road. So the 3D model has shown that a lot of, so nearly 1.3 kilometres, it says up here, of Milton Road is very flat in a linear direction. So that means the water has trouble flowing along the road to the nearest gully point, which is perhaps why, in addition to well, I've heard that gullies are maintained by the locals maintenance office, but people who have spoken to me on the LLF say the maintenance has declined over the last years, and that's one factor why sometimes the gullies don't work, and the other factor is that Milton Road is very flat. It's a very similar problem that we've got on Histon Road. So if we want to improve the design, we need to come up with a solution. It's not, in today's design plan, it's not good enough just to leave the existing number of gullies and hope that they are going to deal with the rain, especially given the fact that all forecasts say that we may have more extreme events in the future. So we need to put in place a solution that works. We've got four main options. So there's a gully, a pretty horrible looking gully. One option is that we just put additional gullies in, and that sounds a very simple option, but actually when you come to designing all of the connections under the ground, it becomes much more complex. And therefore, actually, the installation cost for putting in additional gullies is actually quite high. However, the pro is that it's a standard maintenance operation. The maintenance teams know exactly what to do if, when they do it. There's a programme of maintenance. It's standard. Another one of the cons is that you retain the risk of standing water between the gullies. So that's option one.
The residents don't want to.
Option two. So we proposed this solution for parts of Histon Road. It's actually in the design. Basically what we've got here is a combined curb and drainage system running along the road. That's an option. You've got lots of holes all the way along, smaller holes, but there's a lot of them, so the risk of them getting blocked up is fairly low. However, they require a certain maintenance regime to ensure that the cavities within the curbs remain clear. And also, there is sometimes a problem, depending on where they're installed and how they're installed, that they can crack when heavy goods vehicles run over them. So, for example, there's a roundabout in Ely that's been designed suboptimally in terms of the radius of the roundabout, and these curves have been overrun by HGVs and they've just cracked and disintegrated, which is not great. When it gets actually goes into the curb, and there's a pipe in the curb, a conduit, that's the word, actually in there, then you just connect it to the standard connections that exist already. So another issue of this is actually quite expensive. So each bespoke curb is expensive. So option 3, and this is a design. This is probably the preferred option from a design point of view, and maybe from a sustainability point of view as well. So this is not a picture of, obviously it's not a picture of Milton Road, it's an example picture of somewhere else in the world, I'm not exactly sure where Artie has dug this one up from. And also the trees hopefully will be a bit bigger when you plant them. So this option is the swale option, so the advantage is it retains the grass verges, we're looking to put in a more, what do you have to describe it, durable grass that requires slightly less maintenance. A biodiverse grass. You have inlets from the carriageway into the swale, so that all the water can run off into the inlets, and the advantage is you can have more inlets than you can have gullies. So you can have, I guess, can you have as many inlets as you want, Arthur, or within reason?
I mean, we'll have to go between drop curves.
Okay, so you can have more inlets than you would have normally gullies. You would have an overflow gully in each swale or connected overflows between the swales. So there is a facility for water to enter the drainage system when there is an extreme event. The pros of this is that the planting, the grass absorbs some of the stuff that comes off the road, some of the horrible stuff, before the water then infiltrates into the ground. We do get the water infiltration, so there's less water entering the Anglian Waters network, which is good for them, and also good in the event of a storm event. We water the trees, we water the plants that are planted in this area, and also something that came out of all of the design phase is that this option, due to the fact there's curves and contours, so it's not, you can't explain it as a ditch, but it's more of a depression. This kind of is not great for the verge parking, so it discourages the verge parking because we have the curves all the way around, which is something that the LLF, Milton Road LLF, indicated that they were in favour of. So it has quite a few pros. Obviously, it requires some maintenance, and the maintenance is slightly different to what's existing, but the colleagues have estimated that the maintenance cost is very similar to a verge maintenance cost, so we shouldn't run into a problem with the county council. We're just currently checking with the city council that they're happy to cut the grass with kind of the inverted swale system rather than home burners, which are kind of more of a whatever you call it. So going on to swales, you could obviously, instead of grass, have planting. Again, quite a nice solution. Obviously, completely discourages verge parking unless you're really inconsiderate or have a tractor. This picture doesn't necessarily represent how it would look like on Milton Road because it shows an inlet from the cycleway with a raised curb, but we'd probably have a flat curb between the cycleway and the rain garden if this option we went ahead of this. From my point of view, this option has greater cost because you need to excavate deeper, and I'm worried about the maintenance of it because I think that these kind of things, they look good when you install them, but then if you don't maintain them, you can maintain them in year 1, 2, and then hand over to this, probably to the city council, and if they are running short of funds are, this is not the most important thing in the world when you're managing a budget like the city council sometimes, and so if it doesn't get maintained, it's not going to be good. However, it has a lot of the advantages of the rain garden. So, they're the 4 main design options. The decision really comes from our discussions with our maintenance team, the county council and obviously the city council, but we just wanted to put them out there and get some comments really from the people who So I'll go around, hold on a minute. I will go around the room again, similar to how I did before, and I'll try and be fair and put their hand up first, answer the question. So, Charles got in there first.
It's a strange information question. How wide do they have to be to work? The swale and the rain garden?
So,
what space for?
So, I'm going to hand over to Courtney here. So, Courtney works in the landscape team with WSP. I'll just ask them how wide.
About 1 metre minimum, but you need about a 1 and 5 gradient to 1 and 3 gradient to get it to work right. So we can fit it in with only 1 and 1.2 metre.
Okay, so Charles, we can fit them in as a 1.1 to 1.2 metre verge minimum. However, the reason this fits well with the scheme is because the main areas where we have a problem in terms of grading are the wider section of Milton Road to the north of Arby Road. That's where it's flat, and that's where this solution really works well. What we would try to do is we would try to have a consistent solution along the rest of Milton Road, but in areas where in the design where the verge is narrower, obviously we've got some hard landscaping already, which would stay as hard landscaping. We would probably have a gully system in that section, but in the main areas we can implement this solution.
Thank you.
Well, I would go for this one because you say it's such people park in the road because you've got a lot of complicated curve they can't get over to start with. But the maintenance, because you've got trees quite close together, you've got these little spaces you've got to get round. It may be better to instead of having grass, have the same contour, same profile, but no planting, which could just be sheared off straight.
Should have more the rain garden.
Yeah, well, we're just only this size, you know, a miniature, right? Yeah, miniature bush.
Okay. And I think what's next?
This is bringing for parts of the road that are wide enough to have grass verges. That there's a section of the road coming down from about Ashton Road through to all the way to Mitchell's Corner, really, where this sort of solution isn't going to really work.
Yeah.
So what would the ideas for dealing with water?
So in terms of those areas, the drainage is not such an issue in terms of the gradient. So the gully system is perfectly adequate for dealing with those areas, which is why it works.
Right, and there would be sufficient gullies. At the moment, I know that they do get blocked up and they don't get maintained. Certainly, I can see on my stretch between Asher and Gilbert Road, you do end up with quite a lot of, I don't know, I suppose stuff gets, rubbish gets in the way.
So any system will not work properly if you don't maintain it, any drainage system, so it has to be maintained. But the consideration here is more about the longitudinal gradient of the road, so the gully system in that area works perfectly well, fortunately.
Right, but just not maintained.
Well, hopefully it will be.
I mean, you can tell us not Cambridge because it's not covered with rubbish.
It's a bit harsh. Mike?
Can I ask about the I'm not quite sure where you mean this level, but let's go with some of it. Obviously, we've got the issue of the eastern side of Milton Road being lower, the houses and their gardens and all that sort of thing, perhaps, than the western side. Is this where this will happen? Will it help to address those sort of issues, or?
So we propose to have it on both sides of the road, right, in that area. And in terms of, do you want to explain for me? Or
in some of those areas when the property is actually lower underneath the carriageway, this solution will help us because this side could be actually lower than carriageway, and we may change the slope from the property towards the carriageway. So in some of those areas where we currently have problems, we can improve the situation and resolve this one with this solution. In some of those areas we will have to look for the other solution for the properties, which will mean we will have to probably provide a linear drainage in those areas.
I think we've discussed this before, and where water does drain to the properties on Milton Road, in quite a few of the areas it actually drains into planting areas. So in those areas it's not such an issue, where it's more of an issue where it drains into a hard surface, and in those cases you need to put a filter drain in front of the property to catch the water. But then you could obviously divert that into the rain garden rather than putting it into the general system. So Maureen,
it seems on from Anne's question is that what happens when the road sweepers come there and they put all the stones in the gully?
So with the solution, the designers would set out what maintenance is required. So my guess is that when the City Council maintain this in terms of cutting the grass, they would also perhaps just sweep out the inlets, or it could be that the road maintenance, when they sweep, they have to do that.
And there's also a silt track as well that could be installed that actually captures all of those big granular bits from the road and those are swept out.
So, sorry to bang on about the hard area, but at the moment, as you said, we've had quite a lot of weather, and there are areas on the hard paved areas between Asham and Milton particularly, where there are unusable parts of the pavement, so because it's just a quagmire of rain puddle.
Yeah, so our detailed design is produced, our topographical survey has produced a 3D model of all of that, and the design must address the drainage issues. Whether it is, it must address those, and it must provide drainage for all aspects of the highway between the work extent.
And what is theoretically a decent sized vehicle.
They're chatting about that.
I'll be checking. Well, is any of this considered for Histon Road, for instance, either the rain garden or the inlet, right between Gilbert up to Carriage Road or about Roseford Road and up there?
No, so
we have some drainage problems.
So it would have been, potentially would have been possible if we'd have taken all the trees out on this road in that section. But obviously we don't. A more suitable, so because due to the design of this road, more suitable, and the method that we've adopted is to use option 2, which costs slightly more, but provides a good solution, but also provides a good solution. This is also better on Histon Road because you have a cycleway separating the carriageway from this curve, and so there's less risk of any overrun by the HGV. On Milton Road, the carriageway is right next to the curve in the news of that current day, so there's more risk of overrun. So that's another reason why this is probably better on Histon Road.
So the rain garden we have now by Ackerman is not in any way involved in that.
The rain garden at Aiken Street is a functioning rain garden that's similar to the design on here.
Completely different design type. It has nothing to do with the drainage.
It does have something to do with the drainage, but it's not specifically there to mitigate a problem like this. It's more to just introduce a bit of sustainable drainage and incorporate a landscaping element into Histon Road rather than deal with a specific problem. The problems on Histon Road are more between Gilbert Road and King's Hedges, where the public limits are really flat.
Oh, have you found the brook? I mean, goes across there by Roseford Road, cross over to Swashbuck Road and over to Darwin Green. Have you found it? It is there. Everybody knows it's there.
We've done quite extensive investigation work on kind of the ditch area around there, so. No brick in that. So a question for Richard at the back.
Yeah, so again on this issue of water draining from the carriageway into people's properties, I'd just like to suggest it should be a priority to stop that. And I was a bit concerned when you suggested that the point to stop that might be sort of in front of people's gateways. My view would be that if water is coming off the main motor carriageway towards properties, ideally that shouldn't happen, that should be stopped.
No, it's correct. So water coming from the main carriageway should be captured by whichever system we put in place, so potentially the swale. So all the water will go into the swale. It would be only water that comes from the pedestrian pavement that in some cases drains towards the property, and so it's a much smaller surface area that's capable to be captured by the filter drain.
So that's another concern I had when you showed the first two examples. They were focused on draining the main carriageway. So I was going to wanted to ask about the drainage of the pavement and the cycleway, and where there's less heavy traffic there, is it possible to use permeable paving on those areas?
Well, we are proposing permeable paving in some areas where we've got trees and hard landscaping, and that's also because surface water irrigates trees, which is really helpful.
Yes, there are various solutions for permeability. Whether that's the best solution, I'm not sure.
Well, I hope you keep looking at it and keep considering it.
In certain areas, we have already considered that we probably need it. So, especially where that pavement is close to trees in hard landscaping, so you can get water infiltration. Any more comments on?
Yes, the most critical area in terms of potential flooding of Milton Road is, of course, where the guided busway goes over the road and the area of the science park just beyond it. The reason for that is that the #1 Cambridge public drain has a very large siphon at that point, and if that siphon gets blocked, it's a City and South Cambs responsibility to keep that siphon clear of silt. But if that siphon blocks, then the whole area floods there. So my question is, are you intending, with any of these road drainage measures, to discharge any more water to the surface water drain, #1 public drain?
No. So going back to Histon Road quickly, one of the issues we have on Histon Road is that we are increasing the surface area due to the new bus lane and the increased width of cycle lanes. Anglian Water will not let us discharge any more surface areas worth of water into their system, so we have a system of infiltration crates and soakways that we're having to install. On Milton Road, we don't have such a problem in that we're not increasing the surface area of Milton Road, so Anglian Water are happy for us to discharge for existing outfalls and connections. However, these two options actually reduce the amount of water discharged into Anglian Water outfalls, so that's a massive positive benefit for these, and it's the reason why sustainable urban drainage has got the name it has, sustainable urban drainage, because it's looking to the future, looking to put in solutions that reduce those big flood events, reduce the impact of those big flood events.
I think the jury is still out on swales.
Yeah, if we have some here, we can see how they work. in terms of studies of where they work elsewhere, I'm sure that you've got some experience in. So there have been a lot of studies done.
Have you got time to give us the programme?
Of course.
Because you're running close to 8:30.
Yep. So, there's been a bit of, generally in terms of the GCP programme, we've had to delay things due to the general election, and all of the stuff that was going to go in December to the board in December is now, some of it is going to go to the February board. Milton Road originally in the programme was going to go to March, but due to the fact that it's become more apparent to us that we're definitely not going to start construction until after Histon Road is complete, there's less rush to get the detailed design finished, so I'm going a little bit easier on the design team. Still want them to get it finished so that we've got a final product that I can then go out to tender with. But I'll be less in a rush to go through that whole tender process, so should get a good outcome. So we've got traffic regulation orders which need to be advertised, and I'm still aiming to get that done in spring 2020. Then I've got to procure a contractor. I've got various options on that. Looking then to go to the board in October. So I think it's October, so I'll put the autumn here because I'm not entirely sure of the date yet. So when I go to the board, what I want to have is the detailed design done and the contract procurement, so that the board will then be making a decision on the TROs, the final decision on the design, and the decision on the contractor. And as I said before, it's current plan the construction will commence after Histon Road.
Can you put a provisional not before date on that last one?
April 2021.
Because its current programme for Histon Road is April 21.
That's fine. Not before it.
but obviously we'll monitor the situation using our cameras, and if there's no traffic on Milton Road,
We'll crack on.
well, then obviously, we also need to get it done at some point. No, but you know what I mean. We obviously want to get Milton Road done because it's in a bad state of repair. It needs doing. The scheme massively improves and enhances Milton Road, so I think it's in people's, everyone's interest that we get it done. I don't anticipate so much traffic disruption to bus services when we do Milton Road because of the width that we've got to play with. So we've got 3 lanes on most of Milton Road. We don't have this whole problem where we're going to have a one-way closure. We can get it done with a 2-way flow. And my aim would also be that we try and program it so we still maintain bus lane usage on Milton Road during that time, where we can. I think the only problem area will be when we go between Arby Road and the roundabout, and obviously doing the roundabout itself will be a bit disruptive. So they're the problem areas that I'm anticipating.
Can we be involved in discussions on the TROs before you submit them?
Okay.
I'm interested in things like double yellow lines and roadie restrictions and everything else along the length of the road, which also means we can have enforcement in terms of who's parking on the verge, etc. But also that obviously there'll be impact on residents in terms of whether they can have deliveries. So I think it'd be useful if we could be involved in those sort of discussions before the TROs are submitted. Please.
Paul, could I make a plea? If the timetable is, say, pushed back a long way, but if it is within this framework, could you prevail on your colleagues in the county council to do something with the bus lane between the Gilbert Road lights and what I call the racetrack, the circulatory system at Chesterfield?
Oh, that small section where everyone parks in the bus lane.
Well, that people park, but if you're cycling down there, it's now reaching a point where you take your life in your hands when you cycle on that piece of bus-marked carriageway. And the road itself has had a couple of huge potholes. Those have been kind of dealt with. But the cycling position between Gilbert Road and the zebra crossing is now pretty lethal, and somebody's going to come off.
Do you mean in terms of the quality of the surface?
Absolutely.
I'm sure the county council is on the case, isn't it?
They know it. But I mean, it needs somebody to do something before 2020. Please.
Can I just come in on that one? So we have got, perhaps Claire wants to comment because we have got some rectification permission corner, so perhaps we can build it into that in terms of service treatment. We're due to meet with officers, are we?
So let me know what your discussions will go with the officers.
Yeah.
Because we've increased the enforcement. Yeah, we've increased the enforcement from the parking services in that area. We're trying to do something about the parking in the bus lane. And we're monitoring that at the moment. We're getting an increased, we are going to do it through. And yes, we will be interviewing with officers with just that issue.
Okay, no more questions. Thanks all for coming. Oh, one more question.
I've got a question. You know there's a huge puddle, we'll go back to Histon Road, you know the huge puddle that is always at the Castle Street?
Yeah.
Right, there's a huge puddle, there's often a huge puddle at the top of Castle Street as you turn into Histon Road. Will the work on Histon Road solve that puddle? Because I've been trying to do something with that for a very long time.
I hope so. It should do. We've done the free, so it's free the model, so yes, it should solve that issue.
It should solve that.
The drainage should be designed so that it solves all the current issues.
Thank you.
Could I just say, may we all say thank you to our representatives from the WSP consultancy, to the stagecoach representative, and particularly to Paul for the presentation, but also for organising this meeting, because it was essential that it be held, and it's being held now.
and it's due to Paul that we've been able to come. And I should also say thank you to everybody for all the points that have been raised, for all the questions, because we do know that they will be taken into account. So it's really wonderful that everybody's cooperated in this way. So thank you.
So I'm Richard Taylor. It's the 25th of November 2019, and I'm about to go out to a Greater Cambridge Partnership meeting. That's the new name for the City Deal organisation, discussing the remodelling of Milton Road and Histon Road. And I'm particularly interested in that because I live on Milton Road, so I'm going to be personally impacted by some of the things that are being discussed at this evening's meeting, about the drainage of the road, the verges, and about the arrangements for actually doing the remodelling, which will impact access to my house and traffic in North Cambridge, probably for a couple of years. So I've not gone to a public meeting in Cambridge for just over a year or so now, since I was effectively accused of harassment by a couple of local councillors for simply going along and filming a North Area Committee meeting. And this evening's meeting is even more risky for me to go along to film because its status isn't clear. It's called a forum, a local liaison forum, and it's actually a kind of joint committee of two subcommittees of the joint committee of our three councils, which is and the Greater Cambridge Partnership is a joint committee of our three councils. But I think it's really important to go along today, and the reason I'm making this little video before going is just to show that I have considered that what I'm doing is not harassment. It's not harassing to go along and film and report a local council meeting, in my view. And I've really considered this carefully. I've put this afternoon largely aside to think about the proportionality and appropriateness of going along. And it's a £23 million project to remodel Milton Road. It's a multi-million-pound project to remodel Histon Road. And the impact will be enormous, both on local residents, the wider city, and to a small extent to humanity itself, given the impact that Cambridge has on the world. So, and as for why I want to go along and record, well, and film, I think it'll enable me to support my lobbying. So if there's anything that happens tonight that I want to put to maybe our MP or to people who are councillors on the City Deal Partnership Board, I can do that if I've got a video that I can link to, and it also helps support my reporting. So if I write a tweet, currently we have some very chilling defamation laws in the UK, and if I've got a video that supports what I'm saying, I'm able to defend myself, and that reduces the risks. Like the risks are involved in just something simple like going along to a meeting of local councillors are way too high at the moment, particularly as we're in the run-up to an election campaign. Well, in the run-up to an election, the campaign is on, when people have been spending the party politicians have been spending a lot of time in their parties, they're getting very het up, very emotional, very aggravated, and this is the time of year where I find that they are most challenging and most difficult, and that's why I'd rather not in some ways go to this evening's meeting, but I feel it's important because of the issues that are being discussed, and they're so important both to me personally and to North Cambridge. So I think I can do something good for society by going along and filming, and for people who might not know this meeting's going on. It's been very poorly publicised. There haven't been any flyers on the posted up on the roads. There's been nothing through the letterboxes. I only found out about this meeting earlier on today, and I follow what's going on reasonably closely. Anyway, it's now just coming up to about the sort of time that I need to walk across to the meeting, so I'm going to get going. I'll continue to consider the proportionality balance as I go over and what to do, and I will of course be as careful as I can be, and I've got lots of experience of recording and filming local meetings, so hopefully if anyone's able to do this well, I will be able to do so, and I'll be live tweeting through the evening, I hope. Like ideally I would have more resources to throw at this. I think ideally you really need two cameras. I've got one video camera and I've got my phone, so that's most of the time that means I've only got one camera, and that really needs two people ideally, and perhaps you need those two camera operators ideally to be accompanied by two bodyguards essentially. So it becomes a really difficult thing to do, to go and report on local council meetings. I really think we need to make this easier, and we need to clarify and strengthen the law. Like this kind of meeting should not be should be a formal council meeting, and there should be no ambiguity about that. It's discussing a £23 million remodelling of the road, and it's not only access that affects. There are no proper papers for tonight's meeting, and if it was a formal council meeting, you would have papers published in advance, and we wouldn't be expecting the public and councillors to comment on something that they hadn't seen before. So this is all being handled incredibly poorly, but I'm going to go and do my best to be a good citizen in the context that our councillors have put in place. The real answer to this is one council for Greater Cambridge, and we don't have responsibility shifting between different bodies. It becomes much easier to hold our local councillors to account for what they're doing. Anyway, hopefully I'll have an uneventful evening, and most of the time if you go to a local council meeting, it is utterly boring and uneventful. Occasionally tempers fray and it becomes incredibly challenging, and there are incredibly challenging real-time moral and legal decisions to be made. Hopefully I'm ready to do that. I'm in a good position to do that this afternoon. I've put all my thought towards it this afternoon. If anyone can do it, I think I can do it, but I'm aware that the risks here are enormous, and I could well be something that I'm considering cost me money, cost me my health over potentially the next couple of years. So we've got to make the way we run our society easier, but I'm going to go and do what I can this evening. Okay, I'm off to the meeting. So I'm now approaching the meeting here in Orchard Park, and just a few moments before the meeting is due to start, which is perfect. I've used a half hour or so that I've just had on the walk over to think through all sorts of potential scenarios. For example, if the meeting chair, an officer, asks me to stop filming the meeting, stop reporting on the meeting, I'm going to leave because I'm not prepared to stay there without the video to support any account of what's happened. But I'll ask if there's any chance of an immediate appeal, for example, to the elected councillor chairs who I would expect to be present. I've also thought about where I might locate my camera, and my plan is to go to the side of the room because many of the members of these committees will be, I expect, in the public seating watching presentations, so I want to capture their contributions as well as the presentation itself. So a reasonable distance back from any screen and towards the side of a room, so that's my proposal. Anyway, hopefully I'll make a good job of it. So I can see here that people are turning up, so it doesn't look like it's going to be sort of underway immediately. It's about a minute or two till the time, so I've actually got a bit of a moment just to sort of stand here or somewhere and just get my stuff a bit more ready, particularly just getting the camera out. So what I'm going to do is I'll stand sort of out the way of everybody. And just get a sense of what's going on. So some kind of, looks like possibly the centre manager, and then this is the room. So I could always film from outside, of course, and go through the windows if there are any challenges inside, but that won't be ideal, of course, because there won't be any audio, but that's a good plan B. So let's just get that set up. That was recording. Got about 3 hours and 4 hours depending on the battery or so actually one thing that's interesting is as I was coming in, I tried to go on the pavements of Arbury Road, and quite often there were no pavements. The pavement route, the walking route, was well outside the desire line, which wasn't ideal. I like to note that. And it also looks as if roadworks are going on, digging up the brand new cycle lanes on Arbury Road, which I think has been happening for a while, but it's still quite a shock to see it. Right. So note that there are children here, but they can't stop filming a council meeting just because there are children present. It's sometimes I get annoyed about that. So I think I'll go with it. So up to my eye height like that, and then so the one of the councillor chairs of one of these meetings is still outside, so it doesn't seem to be too much of a hurry to go in. Just trying to start up my oops, it's fallen over. Setting up the audio recorder so there's a backup and potentially for better audio. And that all seems to be good. Yeah, it's got some batteries, 2 bars. So just coordinate those two. That's going. Stuff up my bag into a pocket, and then I'll go in. Hopefully I can look now where I might be able to stand when I go in. So immediately to the left as I go in, that will give me an option to get out. So if I stand right at the back, I'll be able to get out if I need to in emergency the push bar. Just see that the glass is smashed there. I think a few steps in, because if I'm not towards the front, then I don't get the counsellors, you see. So I'm going to balance sort of a safe position with being able to get out. So on the left-hand wall and towards the front, a few steps towards the front, I think. I'll stay with my camera and make sure that I keep it out of anybody's way. So somebody's letting people in one by one. Right at the back wouldn't be such a bad position, actually. I might go for right at the back. Most people are grey-haired in the audience. So, am I rolling? Yes, I am. This is what the room looks like. If you just want to have a look, in case I don't go. So we've got to Councillor Scutt at the front there. We've got our 4-point agenda that we've seen published. So if I do go to the left there, then I might be. If I go to the left but leave the camera tripod folded, or go to the left actually, go right to the front. Go to like 3 rows back, then very few people should want to go past me and stand there. That's my plan. I've given that some careful consideration. I'm a fairly friendly officer, so it should be okay getting in.
Just put in your name and adding your email if we don't already email you and you'd like to get things. Okay. So, if you wouldn't mind just signing in,
No,
please.
thank you. No.
Well, we'd like a record.
If it's not compulsory, I'd rather not, thank you.
I don't think you're allowed to film in there.
Can you tell me who you are, please, and tell me on what basis you're making that request?
Well, yes, if you'd like to just come and see my colleague.
Well, can you tell me who you are and why
Yes,
you made that request, please?
I work for Greater Cambridge Partnership, but I know that you're not allowed to film, I believe.
Well, what basis? What basis?
Consent.
On what basis do you believe that?
My colleague.
Well, can you tell me as an individual why you believe that and why you've challenged me on the way in?
Because
you are the face of the partnership.
Can I help? I'm sorry.
Right, so I'm just being. I feel rather threatened by this lady, so I'm going to ask her to. Can you please stand back, please?
I beg your pardon?
I'm trying to get on with the
Sorry.
Can you tell me who you are, please? So
My name is Sue Garland.
Excuse me, this is for kids on.
Can you tell me who you are, please? And I've just been told by this gentleman here that I'm not allowed to film this evening's meeting. Can you please let me know and let my viewers know why that is the case, please?
I'm actually a temporary worker for the council.
Right. So why are you preventing? Why can you please? Could you
preventing-
please step aside and let me get into this public meeting this evening, please?
I'm not stopping you. I'm just.
Thank you.
I'm
Can you
not
please step aside? Because
I'm
at the
sorry.
moment,
Can you tell me who you are? Because I have no idea who you are, sir.
I'm a member of the public.
What's your name?
I'm a member of the public, and I've come to
What's your
observe and
name?
participate in this evening's public meeting.
Do you have model release to film people?
I don't think
Have
that's
you-
relevant. Could
Do
you
you
just
have
told me that you're
permission?
not stopping me. So if you're not stopping me, could you please? Thank you very much. Just step aside. Thank you very much. Could you please step a little bit further back, please, so that I can get into the meeting?
I'm a private individual. I don't actually.
Well, you
know-
appear to be wearing a badge which
I'm
says
wearing
Greater
a
Cambridge
badge.
Partnership. You are the face today to
I'm
me
not
of
the
Greater
face.
Cambridge Partnership.
I can
You are the
Would you
person who
like
is speaking
to
me.
introduced to the person who's running this meeting.
Great.
Can I introduce you to the official person who is not here? I am merely.
Well, you've said that you won't stop me, so could you please
I'm
step
not
back and let me in, please?
You are offensive.
Well, I've thought through incredibly carefully.
This man is talking to me as a temporary worker for the council and is harassing me. You are
I'm feeling
harassing
incredibly
me.
threatened.
You are harassing me.
I've really thought through. I spent a lot of time thinking through how I will approach attempting to come to this meeting. I've been very careful, and all I've done is I've come in and I've been told I'm not allowed to film this evening's meeting.
This is the person you speak to. You do not talk to other people. You do not
Well,
introduce yourself.
you two are the
This
people
gentleman-
who I met when I came in and who told me I wasn't allowed to. This man
I have
told me
said
about the film,
nothing to you.
and you
This
stopped.
is the
You were
person-
between me and the meeting.
Because
So-
I'm going to film you and I'm going to take you to the police. Because I am a private individual and I will not be talked to by you like this.
Can you explain what you think that I've done which warrants anything going to the police? I'm here at a public meeting and I'm here to participate. I'm a resident of Milton Road. I've considered the proportionality very carefully here this evening. The issues that are being discussed here are drainage on Milton Road. They are the issues of how the works will be organised. So I've thought very carefully about what I'm doing today. I think it's I've acted very proportionately. I just want to come and take part in and film and use modern technology to report on a public meeting, a meeting to advertise in public, about remodelling the road that I live on. And I think that I'm doing that incredibly carefully and proportionately and politely. And I've been stopped by 2 officers on the way in. And I'd like to know...
I have not stopped you.
Well, you're
at all.
currently standing between me and the meeting, which is what I've said repeatedly.
I'm standing next to the person you need to meet to introduce you, and you are offensive to me as an individual
Well, I don't
person.
see how... I've been very polite and very calm and...
I do not work officially for this
You're
council.
wearing a badge which says Sue Garland, Greater Cambridge Partnership. To me, this evening, you have been the face of
Anyway, let's
that joint
calm down,
committee.
please.
So will I be able to observe the meeting this evening? And,
Yes, you will.
Thank you very much.
Please turn the mic off a minute so we can just
No,
discuss.
absolutely not, because the problem is I've just been told that this lady is filming to report me to the police. So I would put myself in an incredibly vulnerable position if I turned off the camera.
Can you stop speaking for a minute so I can just speak? So, Sue, this is Richard Taylor. Richard Taylor does often come and he does often film the meetings, and the people of Milton Road don't have a problem with that. And in the past we have said that is okay. I don't know what happened when you came in.
I was told I would not be allowed to film by this gentleman here.
I was told by my line manager that these should not be filmed.
And can you identify the line manager, please?
I don't want to at this stage.
Okay,
so I did ask who he was speaking on behalf of, and now he's told me an unidentified line manager. So you can see what I've faced when I've come in here this evening. It's been quite challenging.
Accuse me of stuff, and I haven't said a word to
So
you.
Sue is a contractor, so she is representing the Greater Cambridge Partnership, but just remember that Sue is a contractor, so please...
But of course, to me, she is the face of Greater Cambridge Partnership
that's fine, but
coming in this evening.
Maybe just ask for me. As project manager, I don't mind if you come in.
We're on our way.
So please come in and film. Please don't get any more tension in the meeting.
Well, I've been as careful and polite and proportionate as I could be, but I was certainly not expecting to meet any challenge like
I
that.
never challenged you. I said I was introducing you to the right person.
Well, it's all on video. You were standing between me and the meeting, and you...
I came out the door.
Well, that's...
Stop this argument,
Do you know,
please.
I am not paid to listen to people like you. Stupid bug.
So don't
No,
do
well,
that.
I'm not. I'm out here at the
You're
end
on
of the
camera. You're on camera.
So now I'm being threatened and pushed
I'm not threatening you. You're threatening me.
Well, I think she did take a couple of steps towards me there, which I took as actually potentially it's assault. So, and now she's approaching me again. I am aware that I've checked out this room. I have a push bar to open here. So I think this is. That's how scared I am. I've come to the emergency exit. So I'm feeling incredibly frightened and distressed, really. But it shouldn't be that difficult, as I said before I came, to participate in local public meetings and local government meetings, which this essentially is.
Okay, please just set the camera up. Let's go for it.
Thank you.
Start. And just please don't upset Sue anymore.
Well, I don't think I've done anything to upset anybody.
I don't know what you did, but
Well, I nearly turned up, as I usually do. But quite often
but
I face that kind of response
Yeah,
from
but
from officers.
she's never met you before, so maybe...
But she's obviously not been like, there will be lots of people here with mobile phones and people who
Yeah,
try
but
and film.
Sue's not an officer, she's a contractor, and you need to just be sensitive who you're talking to, so I'm not sure what happened.
Well, she was the person who the
I
person on
don't
reception went sort of as the
that's
next
fine,
level
but
up.
let's
So
move forward, and let's just get on with the meeting now.
Oh, I'm not stopping you in any way. I'm not disturbing you in any way. It's all right, thank you. It's nice. The chocolate by resident, so.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry, Jocelyn,
are now looking to leave safely. The officer who caused the problem at the beginning of the meeting is in the red coat over there. So if she's going to go first, yeah, she seems to be ready to go, so I'll attempt to follow her. I really
Excuse me, I'd like you to apologise to me. I'm 66 and you're intimidating me because I'm an elderly person. I haven't got badges on. I'm here as a civilian. What is your name?
I'm Richard Taylor, as I was.
What do you do for a living?
I've got a website, rtaylor.co.uk.
What do you do?
I'm public about what I do. I'm very open about everything I do. I operate incredibly transparently.
Why are you abusing me?
I wasn't at all.
You were telling me I was threatening you as if I was harassing you. I'm
feel
66.
I don't think
I'm
that
an old age pensioner, and you threatened me.
I didn't. How do you think that I threatened you?
Because you immediately ran away and started talking to me as if I'm causing you a threat. All I was trying to do was
that was how I
introduce
felt. I felt very, very frightened by you.
A 66-year-old
Yes,
woman.
I did. I didn't take your age or gender into account. What I saw you. I don't think that's relevant. And what I saw you as was a representative of the City Deal, the Greater Cambridge Partnership. You were wearing their badge, and you were preventing me from entering a public meeting.
I'm a temporary worker.
You
I'm
were also the note taker this evening. You were referred to in the public meeting. So I think it's entirely appropriate to show how you have behaved this evening and how you have, like, lots of people.
Where's your website? Would you care to write it down for me so I can see it?
Oh yes,
I'm also a journalist,
Yes.
so I'm interested. Give me a deed. Look, what do you think I'm going to do?
Well, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay clear of you. What I'm now going to offer is I'm offering my card. I'm offering.
I'm
in my humble
66
opinion,
and
you're
bloody.
being a bit So I'm happy to offer my card. So if you've got any concerns, then.
Would you like to give it to the gentleman
Yes.
to give to me, so you don't
Councillor,
threaten?
would you mind?
You don't
Yeah,
say
sure.
I molested you.
So.
Would you care to give it to that gentleman to give to me?
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I'm 66 and I want to get back to her.
Well, you're a year older than I am, but I mean, I think you're making a big fuss about nothing, so
I'm not employed to be talked to by people like that. I'm not paid to be talked to by people like you.
Are you people?
Well, because lots of people like it. Like a few people come up to me afterwards and they've said.
You have a website where you show
Yeah, I put it on YouTube, but it means that sort of thousands of people who haven't made it tonight. Perhaps it hasn't been very.
Coming and doing it.
Well,
Thank
like
you.
this councillor, for example, saying thank you, and it wasn't particularly well publicised. There were no flyers through houses' letterboxes. There were no posters up on notice boards, as far as I could see, or lampposts in the area. So there'll be lots of people who wanted to come here tonight who weren't there, and a few of them will be able to see it on video.
Did put out as much as he could. You know PERD is going on, so you can't be too overt.
Can I have one of your websites? Your website address so I can look at it.
Yeah, I'm R. Taylor.
I think for information.
rtaylor.co.uk. Well, I've been doing it now for about 10 years or so, following the City Council and the County Council and sort of things in the local area. So I'm rtaylor.co.uk.
You're a journalist, or are you? What are you?
Well, it's up to you how you want to describe me.
Are you citizen journalist?
Sorry. What I can say is I brought 4 people with me this evening because I had the email and the rest of them didn't know anything about the meeting. So,
well, I'm sure lots of people. Well, in my experience, what happens is that when stuff starts, so when the work starts on site, there'll then be a huge interest in all the videos of what was discussed today, because people don't.
I'd like to look at it. Just
Yeah, so I wrote, for example, about the fire station redevelopment, where they put the flats on top of the fire station, and I got a huge amount of traffic for that as soon as they started building it, and like when all the scaffolding came off. So people were kind of involved a bit too late, almost, and so then they were really interested in the discussions.
So what was it, art?
rtaylor.co.uk as my website.
Is that all?
And rtayloruk on Twitter and YouTube. So.
Taylor.
I don't normally I have just given away my card to.
No, it's only that I'd like to look at it out of interest. rtaylor.co.uk.
Yeah.
Oh, that's simple, really, isn't it?
Well, and hopefully, if you just sort of search Cambridge Milton Road and things, you'll find us. Like I've been following it since the money was allocated, so you should find the full history there.
I think.
Excellent. Yeah, that's me.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
So notwithstanding the challenges getting into the meeting, it was a relatively, well, the bit I was interested in came at the last half hour on Milton Road. So we found out that they haven't made any more changes to the plans, but they are now moving into considering the drainage. And we saw those drainage options, and I felt it was really useful for me to come along because I was able to stress the importance of not getting road water, runoff from the road, into people's properties, and to try and encourage that is made a priority, and also to suggest use of permeable paving for the cycleways and footpaths, which again will help stop water going into properties and hopefully keep the cycleways and pavements safe for longer during the year. Anyway, I'm going to walk home.